Good evening, folks. Welcome. This is the Red Hook Town Board meeting of May 8th, 2018. Would you kindly join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Happy spring. It finally is spring here in Red Hook. It's good to see you all. Steve, for the folks at home, as always, would you kindly show them what's going to be on the agenda this evening? Oh, well, that's not good. No, it's not supposed to be a quorum. Well, that's not good, is it?
This is a museum tour.
Huh. Alright, well, it was just barking. Hang tight, we'll get it done. Maybe.
Well, a 10-year-old.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, we're getting there. Apologies for the technical breakdown there. Okay. Let's try that again, Steve. Okay, very good. Thank you, Steve. We're going to begin tonight's meeting as we do all first meetings of the month, and that is with the supervisor's report. This is a monthly report that's given to the town board from my office with the hard work of the bookkeeper, and it gives you the summary of where we stand financially at the end of the month. This is the report ending April 30th, 2018. We start out with bad pixels, is what we start out with. There we go. Opening balance, $6,451,209. Receipts of $424,890, and disbursements of $307,964 for an ending balance of $6,568,135. Some highlights for you in the report. We received the funds that were allocated to the Red Hook Church Cemetery. As you know, we've taken over operations of the historic Red Hook Church Cemetery, which is just north of the village of Tivoli. We have also included in the supervisor's report, you will see that the sales tax extender, you'll see it in your budget adjustments a little bit more clearly. We received our growth factor of 92,000, which was above our estimates for the year, and so that leaves us in better shape than we thought. We received, Harry, I know you always want to hear about the Community Preservation Fund.
I have it memorized already.
Okay, well, we also received another $25,000 today, which is not reflected in today's statement. So we have over $1 million in the Community Preservation Fund. And as you know, we've been leveraging that money with our partners in order to protect our critical open spaces and working farmlands. The last note I will let you know is we applied for some FEMA money, those storms that we went through this year, and we did receive $27,000 for time and materials associated with that emergency. Right. And you have some budget adjustments that Ann would like you to review. And you see some of those numbers I referenced coming in. Any questions? All right.
How much from FEMA you said,
27,000, that's
Yeah,
not
so
reflect.
it's all going to the highway, it
Yep,
looks like, yeah, okay.
Yep.
And, the Challenger Field project revenue, is that because we received the grant in hand, or?
The
what's
grant,
that?
the grant continues over from year to year,
Uh-huh.
so we received the grant award last year,
Right,
actually.
so is it reflected on these?
It has to be repopulated
Yeah,
each year,
okay.
in both the revenue and the expense, and we are starting to receive expenses associated with the engineering review of the project.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, any other questions before we go ahead and approve the budget adjustments? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye, thank you very much. You also have in your packet the variance reports of actual versus budget for you to review.
I think we never moved that.
Oh, sorry. Is there a motion to approve the budget adjustments?
So moved.
All right, thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right,
And that
thank you, Sarah.
also is the supervisor's report.
And the supervisor's report, okay, there's a motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Okay, next on the, can you tell them in a hurry, because we've got a lot to do tonight? Next on the agenda, we have the clerk's report. Sue?
This is the monthly report for April 2018. Total local shares remitted to supervisor as town revenue, $1,731.77. Amount remitted to New York State Ag and Markets for their spade and neuter program, $63 was remitted to them. Amount remitted to New York State Department of Health for marriage licenses, $67.50. Amount remitted to New York State Environmental Conservation, $717.98, for a total state, county, and local revenue of $2,580.25. Pursuant to Section 27, Sub 1 of the town law, I hereby certify that the foregoing is a full and true statement of all fees and monies received by me, Sue McCann, Town Clerk, Town of Red Hook, during the period stated above in connection with my office. And I also have some abstracts to read tonight. We have January's and February's. Vouchers 22930 through 23064, with a total abstract of $262,220.44. And I hereby certify that the vouchers numbered 22930, 23064, processed in the month of January, are accurate reporting of the abstracts approved for payment by the town board. And here's February's abstract. Vouchers 23065 through 23139, with a total abstract of $56,534.20. And I hereby certify that those vouchers processed in the month of February are an accurate reporting of the abstracts approved for payment by the town board. Sue McCann, Town Clerk. So it's January and February. And that is it. Copies are always available in my office of any of these reports you'd like to see.
Thank you very much, Sue. Is there a motion to accept the clerk's report?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Announcements, I only have two announcements. The first is to bring to your attention that the second meeting of the month that was scheduled for May 23rd is being scheduled instead for May 30th. That's also a Wednesday, just a week later. So if you would mark your calendars, that's when it will take place. The next announcement I would like to make is there was a very nice ceremony this weekend. And please please excuse the old guy in the front, but a ceremony honoring 4 of our Eagle Scouts who obtained that rank, many of whom you know or know their families. Ethan Usted, Jack Hobson, of course you know Hobson family from Hobson Windows, Pat Murphy, and Chapman Odlum. And that's the Northern Duchess Rod and Gun Club, and all family and friends there together, and that was Saturday evening as well. And their achievements, obviously, becoming an Eagle requires 21 badges minimum, and many of them exceed that. And they have a project that they do as a sort of a final installment of their credentials. And for Ethan, it was installing a footbridge and trails at Wilderstein. And for Jack, it was building a lean-to at Wilcox Memorial Park, the county park there off of 199 in Pine Plain. And Patrick Murphy was landscape improvements to the Lions Club in Rhinebeck. And for Chapman, it was building modular rehearsal cubes for the drama club at Red Hook High. So we celebrate their accomplishments, and I told them that I would do my best to make them famous. All right. Any other announcements? Obviously, Apple Blossom Day is coming up this Saturday. If you're watching at home, it's already occurred, and hopefully you enjoyed it. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Anything else? The school district will be here, and they'll obviously mention to you that the vote on the budget, and also for candidates, I understand we have 4 candidates for 1 spot for the school board, and that takes place on Tuesday, so that's the day after you're watching it at home. All right, very good. I'm going to see if we can take a few public comments. We're running late with our public hearing, and I expect that most of you are here for the public hearing. So is there anybody who would like to speak on something else first in the public comment period? And again, reminding you, whether it's for public hearing or for public comment, the town board back in 2010 instituted rules to ask you to please limit it to 3 minutes so that we can continue to conduct a meeting afterwards. Okay. Yes, Ross, would you like to come up?
Can I say something about the speed limit now?
Yes, you may.
Okay. Hey, good evening, everyone. Just wanted to quickly, I'm a resident who lives over in the Forest Park neighborhood. Some of you may have heard we had some recent kerfuffle about the stop sign, speed limit signs that were changed. I understand the board is going to be putting forth a resolution to bring the speed limits back down to, or down to the lowest limit that you can do. As a parent of 2 young girls and a neighborhood filled with young children and seniors, we thank you very much for taking attention to this quickly and helping us to move back into a safer environment for the kids, because it is one of the popular neighborhoods for kids to come out into for trick-or-treating. So we want to keep it slow and safe for the kids. So thank you for taking this action. I'm hoping you all will be approving it, but thank you.
Thank you, Ross.
Oh, and my wife, Allison Gould, thanks you all as well.
Okay.
Please tell her I said that.
Okay. Somebody's in the doghouse. Okay. Would anybody else like to speak to our county legislator? Would like to say a few words?
Good evening. I'm Chris Munn, County Legislator for Red Hook and Tivoli. Good to be here tonight. Good to see a lot of people here tonight. Just wanted to report in on some things that are going on at the county that may be impacting you and residents of Red Hook and Tivoli. We recently had a bond come in front of us for our county defender's office. They asked for, the administration asked for another $4.6 million on a project that was originally supposed to cost $1.7. This was not a cost overrun or waste as much as it was just a poor estimate to start with. And the legislature's been looking into, I've been looking into what happened. They've suggested that the prior commissioner of the Department of Public Works, who no longer works there, was responsible for guiding the estimate process to a very low number intentionally. How that low number per square foot made it all the way out through the legislature 2 years ago is really, I don't understand how it wasn't stopped then, but now we're in a situation where we have a building that's already had asbestos mitigation, pulled out of the walls, and we own the building. So the decision was whether we sell it at a loss or after getting a full design and estimate and a full look at what our options were, whether to approve it. And the legislature did decide to go forward with it. We think the Public Defender's Office is worthy of funding. They've been underfunded for years and years, and they're getting a lot of state grants for more staff, and they have nowhere to put them. That said, we're hoping to look into making sure the procedures are in place for upcoming bonds and for future expenditures to make sure that the administration is bringing us accurate designs and engineering. And I think we have a partner in the administration to fix what's wrong there and to improve the oversight there. I also had a good meeting with the Department of Behavioral Health and Community Services. I met with all the leaders there about the opioid epidemic, what they're doing to combat it, the prevention in the schools, and what kind of funds that we could add to the budget if necessary to help them out. For the most part, it was a learning experience for me, learning from the experts what they're doing. They appear to be doing a lot. I had some questions about mental health beds and getting an assessment done on that. So hopefully that'll happen because we don't actually have an assessment of how many mental health beds the county thinks we actually need. There is a 200-person wait list at any given time for mental health beds. And about 10 or 20 come off a month from that list, but it stays pretty steady. So we're going to look into that as well. As always, I'm available on Facebook. My phone number is 293-2088. You can text me or call me. That's 845 area code. And if you get a voicemail, please leave a message. I do have a regular 9-to-5 job. And I'm happy to hear from anybody via email as well. Thank you.
Good, thank you very much, Chris, appreciate it. Would anybody else like to make some public comments prior to the public hearing? Okay, very good. So why don't we, and I apologize, we're running a little late tonight. Sue, do you have the public hearing notice?
I do.
Thank you.
Notice of public hearing, Town of Red Hook. Please take notice that a public hearing will be held by the Town Board of the Town of Red Hook on May 8th, 2018 at 7:35 local time at the Town Hall, 7340 South Broadway, Red Hook, New York, 12571, to hear all interested persons on a proposed local law number C of 2018 entitled A Local Law to Establish a New Chapter 79 of the Town Code to be known as Food Trucks, and to amend Chapter 143 of the Town Code of the Code of the Town of Red Hook entitled Zoning to prohibit drive-through businesses and formula businesses, to rezone the Business 1 B1 district in Upper Red Hook as a Hamlet Business HB district, to amend the uses in various districts to include food trucks, to amend the TND-CC sub-district to delete the special permitted uses, and to amend the area and bulk table to include provisions for the HB district. This local law amends the zoning law to expressly define drive-in, drive-through, and drive-in window and formula businesses, and to prohibit them in all zoning districts in the town. Existing definitions and regulations for fast food restaurants in the B1 district are deleted. This local law also amends the zoning law to replace the B1 district in Upper Red Hook with a Hamlet Business HB district, which amends uses and design standards. This local law also amends the use table to permit food trucks in various districts and establishes a new Chapter 79 of the Town Code to include provisions for food trucks. The local law also eliminates certain specially permitted uses in the TND-CC district regarding automobile-oriented businesses. This local law amends the zoning map to include the new HB district. Please take further notice that copies of said proposed local law are available for review at the Town Hall, 7340 South Broadway, Red Hook, New York. All interested persons will be given an opportunity to be heard in person or by directing comments in writing to the Town Board, 7340 South Broadway, Red Hook, New York. All reasonable accommodations will be made for persons with disabilities. In such a case, please notify the town clerk in advance at the above address or by phone 845-758-4606 so that arrangements can be made. By order of the town board of the town of Red Hook, dated April 10th, 2018, Sue McCann, Town Clerk, Town of Red Hook. This public hearing notice was sent to adjacent municipalities. It went to the town of Claremont, Rhinebeck, Ulster, Milan, Saugerties. It also went to the village of Saugerties, the village of Tivoli, and the village of Red Hook. It was also mailed out to property owners that either abut or lie 200 feet from the lands that will be affected.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much, Sue. I would draw your attention, we have some handouts that I believe were available also last month. We had a presentation by our planner, Michelle Gregg, on this proposed law. She is here with us tonight as well to help us receive your comments. And it's our hope and expectation that this will be the first public hearing on this matter, but not the last public hearing on this matter. So, okay, with that being said, I would like to open the public hearing, and again remind you, if you could kindly leave your comments to a time period of 3 minutes. You're welcome to submit something extensive in writing as well, and again, we will have this law up for a public hearing, continued public hearing. So, who would like to go first? Linda?
Linda Keeling, I prepared 10 pages of comments, and I'm only going, because it's 3 minutes, read a little bit. The proposed local law C contains too many pages, 36, and topical sections, 4 or 5. They should be presented individually, so all comments can be reviewed and adjusted more easily for the public and reviewers. It's too lengthy a proposal and does not allow the public to focus on one section at a time. It seems to have been purposefully structured to overwhelm, confuse, and discourage the public with too many areas of concerns. There was only one outreach informational meeting for the B1 Hamlet concerns, in which not all landowners were officially noticed. In conclusion, the proposed HB district does not conform to the purpose of promoting small-scale businesses as promoted in the Comprehensive Master Plan and Centers and Green Spaces Plan. Suggested intensified development will increase congestion on this main thoroughfare known as the Kings Highway or Route 9, negatively impact the existing residences, and increase the traffic volume, congestion, and car pedestrian accidents. Although it is suggested to serve the local needs, it does not serve this purpose, as it would attract tourism through large volumes of guest rooms, eating establishments, and theater productions in a more than concentrated land area than what exists now. This intensified development will take business away from the village of Red Hook. When the Upper Red Hook Old Post Road was developed in the late 1700s to 1800s, development was sporadic, modest, and served the local needs. A small Episcopal church, a cooperage, small grocery store, etc., served the everyday needs of the local people, reachable by walking or using a horse and carriage. What you are proposing increases the land acreage usage with large commercial buildings that rely on 18-wheeler trucks to deliver goods. This in turn increases the traffic count, making the HB a less than desirable place to walk around to purchase items. The plan needs major scaling down, rethinking, and more discussion and input from the residents. This preconceived plan has been quickly thrust upon the public with hopes the volume of content would scare them off from challenging the intended outcome, benefiting a close few residents interested in commercial development of land parcels.
Thank you, Linda. Would anybody else like to make some comments here at the public hearing? Okay.
Oh, okay.
Might have passed these out. Thank you. Good evening, Supervisor, ladies and gentlemen of the board. Todd Bayrite, Apple Ring, Red Hook. Let's put these on. When do we start the clock, Robert?
What, do you want to start again? There's a second page to this? No, it's on the back. Yeah, sorry.
The proposal to ban the formula-type businesses is a clear error of judgment. It's just plain wrong for so many reasons. With our interpretation of the law, we believe that it would prohibit businesses like Williams Lumber, Ace Hardware, Hannaford, CVS, Dunkin' Donuts, CarQuest, Auto Parts, Plimpton Hills, Stewart's Ice Cream Shops, things like the former IGA, most gas stations. We also understand that certain allowances or exceptions have been made for some favorite formula businesses like John Deere, Keels John Deere, Conway Snapper, Miglarelli Farms, things like that. Just a few more potential formula businesses that could open in Red Hook and could not with this legislation would be another grocery store, Sprint or Verizon, AT&T, most cell phone stores would not be able to open. Sir Speedy Printing would not be able to open. Four Brothers Pizza, Curves Gym, Yankee Candle Shop, Cosmos Pizza, gyms like Gold's, Planet Fitness, Crunch. Most home goods stores, carpet stores, just to name a few. Recently, a franchise spice and tea store looked at opening here in Red Hook, and wouldn't that just be terrible? This proposal is discriminatory. Many formula businesses, due to their buying power, business plan, etc., actually save people a lot of money. This is helpful to all of us, but necessary to many. Many families can't afford to shop in our boutique shops, and they need alternatives. I contend you are discriminating against the less fortunate. Might this be a fortunate person's proposal? Most franchises are operated by a franchisee that often lives, even a McDonald's, I know this is one of the awful things we're talking about, but even a McDonald's the other day had the name of the two owners on the door. It was really nice. On the way out, it said, gee, if you have any comments, call Janice, or their phone number. But on a more local, I'll give you Kevin and his brother that own the Subway sandwich shop, for example. Just two great guys that live fairly locally and running some Subway stores. And many others. Lots of local people own lots of these. A major advantage to a franchise is that the franchise shows people how to operate the business successfully. A franchise guides, coaches, teaches, and helps and advertises for the business owners, usually making them successful. Higher property taxes and school taxes always a concern of everyone. And to limit certain successful commercial businesses which do not benefit from the homestead tax and which do pay property taxes, which some people don't seem to understand that. Businesses pay school taxes, they pay property taxes. This would further limit the growth of our commercial tax base. And I wish Paul were here, Paul Fredericks, because he used to carry this flag and carry this torch all the time. He spoke so many times about how diminished and how low our commercial tax base is, and that's one of the reasons why our property taxes for everyone sitting in the room, living in town, are so high, because our commercial tax base is low. I contend that if this law were passed, it would be a detriment to that. It would decrease commercial tax base. Legal challenges. There will likely be legal challenges to this legislation, and those lawsuits will be very costly to the town, therefore the people in this room, the taxpayers. The board should consider the responsibility of the taxpayers when considering legislation that is so controversial, burdensome, and really ripe for litigation. We have no idea what the future will bring. As business becomes more and more difficult, a well-run, organized formula business, often with local owners, good business operations and cost savings will probably be more and more common and financially and economically necessary. There's no justification for the ban. We can simply regulate with specific zoning codes designed to manage the development, the character, signage, and feel of all types of stores. Let's not prohibit some businesses just due to their quantity of stores, or their standardized logo, or their standardized services and uniforms. I agree that we should have strict design regulations. to create aesthetically pleasing rural and historical character. We should mandate the removal or modification of certain franchise types of architecture and signage, but we should not prohibit them from joining our community. I ordered I don't want to say where I ordered it, on Amazon, but I ordered a floor mat for out front that says, go away, or you're not welcome here, because it seems to be a common thread through this proposal. Is that really who we are? I don't think so. We're Red Hook. We love Red Hook. Obviously, I love Red Hook. It's the center of the universe. I don't stand before you and speak of these dislikes for this proposal for any selfish gain at all. So, thank you. Thanks for letting me go past.
Okay. Would anybody else like to make some comments at the public hearing?
Hi, good evening. Joshua Mackey, Butts and Wise. I represent Bayrite Enterprises. You've just heard from Todd. Certainly the family needs no introduction, having served this community for generations. For the following reasons, my client is opposed to the proposed ban on formula businesses. In furtherance of what the first speaker had to say about the proposal being confusing, I would agree with that wholeheartedly. In fact, it violates municipal home rule law, section 23. There has to be a separate local law for each proposal. So that's a ministerial matter, but I don't think it goes without saying, and there is certainly something to talk about there. Second, clearly this is a type 1 action under SECRA. Without a shadow of a doubt, it involves the adaptation of changes in allowable uses with any zoning district affecting 25 or more acres of the district. Pursuant to SECRA, a type 1 action is one that more likely requires the preparation of a draft environmental impact statement in order to properly examine the potential environmental effects of a particular action. The proposed zoning changes would not be confined to one part of the town, as we all know, and would greatly exceed the minimum 25-acre threshold. I saw in the meeting minutes for the April meeting that the board indicated to classify the change as a type 1 action, but I haven't seen a long-form EAF, and we'd ask for clarification on that point. Beyond the extensive reach of the proposed zoning amendments is the substantive and serious adverse impacts the amendments would have on private land development in the town, as Todd alluded to. Prior to adoption of the proposal, we submit that you're required to undertake a complete assessment of any of the potential environmental effects that the law may have. Such environmental effects are not limited to the physical changes, which have been discussed to the environment, but also the potential changes to the community and neighborhood character as a result. This is not to say that the physical changes to the town will result from the amendments are insignificant. Far from it. There's anecdotal support, which we will be providing in subsequent meetings, that concern the impacts of vacant and derelict commercial properties will cause a further strain on the tax base and increase demand on law enforcement responsible for protecting the public from dangerous havens of criminal activity, which will surely result from such vacancies. The only proper way in which to undertake such an assessment is through a draft environmental impact statement. We're also asking for clarification on that. We assume that the board is going to undertake that study. This is important for the public to understand the rationale behind the proposed changes and the potential impact of those changes on the community. In this case, the proposed changes in regard to prohibiting formula businesses would have a dramatic and injurious effect on many local landowners and by extension, the residents of the town. By eliminating an entire pool of potential tenants and purchasers from the market merely because those tenants are associated with national or regionally recognized retail, restaurant, or other type of businesses. The severity of the impact on the community must be comprehensively weighed in a draft environmental impact statement that's subject to a full public reviewing, including a hearing. In addition to the question of SECRA, there's no question that there is no discussion of a ban on formula-based businesses in your comprehensive plan. The plan, which was amended in July of 2011, is silent as to the elimination of formula-based businesses as a town planning goal. While the August 31st, 2016 report by the Intermunicipal Task Force purports to identify a rationale for the elimination of formula-based businesses in the town, that report is not a substitute for amending the town comprehensive plan, since there's no formal process or public comment, as far as we know, on the task force work.
Joshua, I just want to let you know, you run out of time. Did you want to make
Sure.
a point or two before?
I've submitted to you a letter of today's date, which goes into a lot of my points in detail. We also note, finally, that the references relied upon by the task force included a 2010 Cape Cod study, which we respectfully submit has no application whatsoever to the town of Red Hook, for obvious reasons, and one personal interview. So there's a lot more scrutiny that has to be had before this law is passed, and we expect that you'll adjourn tonight's meeting, or continue it rather, so that we'll be able to come back and provide a further presentation and perhaps expert information.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Joshua.
I'll give you my time.
I'm sorry, no, we don't give over time, just so you know. And Steve, you were next?
Good evening. My name is Steve Appenzeller, and I'm a resident of the town of Red Hook. I live on Carriage Drive. Today, is a perfect day to kind of underscore some of my comments in support of local law C, particularly in relation to formula businesses. It's a spring day, and I was driving down 199, stopped at the burrito stand, picked up dinner for my family. It's unique establishments like the burrito stand, and there's dozens of them in our town, that make this a unique and special place to live. And those are the businesses which are operated by our friends and our neighbors. And through my involvement with community activities, I have the privilege of speaking to a lot of different people through a broad cross-section of our residents, and particularly talking to new residents, people who have young children who've moved to our town. Two things they always cite as to why they moved here. Two among many factors in a lot of cases. One, the quality of the schools, and two, the unique texture of our town. It's the businesses, the restaurants, things that are not commoditized like they can find on Amazon or a slew of other businesses. When people come to visit from out of town, I also hear, wow, you guys live in a great community, and I feel very fortunate to live here. But beyond all these qualitative factors, there's data which support the value of locally owned businesses. Study after study, Cape Cod study being just one of many, cite local business having a larger impact on the local economy than chain stores. Institute of Civic Economics has some great data on that. Chain stores also have the potential to encourage business instability. While it's an extreme example, when a Walmart opens up, between 5 and 14% of local businesses can expect to close within 15 months of that opening. Local businesses also contribute far more than chains to local charities and fundraisers. That's data from a Michigan State University study. And finally, a study sponsored by the National Association of Realtors found home values in zip codes with business districts dominated by independent businesses on average enjoy a 54% greater increase in home values compared to communities dominated by chains. Thank you for consideration of my comments.
Thank you, Steve, very much. Would somebody else like to make some comments at the public hearing?
Good evening. I want to begin by thanking you for your service, and especially to our community here, which is so vital to us here in Dutchess County. For those of you who I don't know, I'm Frank Costello Jr. I'm the president and CEO for the Dutchess County Regional Chamber of Commerce, and I strongly believe that small business is the backbone of our business community here. There's no question about that. We preach think local first. However, I want you to keep in mind, just to address some of the comments from the previous speaker, that franchise businesses are most often owned by a local individual, oftentimes somebody that lives right here in your very own community. So on behalf of the Dutchess County Regional Chamber of Commerce, its board members, 1,500 member organizations, and professional staff, I'm here to express opposition to the proposed draft legislation prohibiting franchise-type businesses, restaurants, and retailers right here in Red Hook. On Friday, April 27th, our Board of Directors for our chamber unanimously passed a resolution in opposition of this legislation as it is currently proposed. This regulation has many damaging aspects for both businesses and citizens. It promotes discriminatory practices and will further harm marginalized communities due to socioeconomic factors. While franchise businesses may not help all, they are at times the sole affordable resource available to some families. Franchises are most often owned by local residents, as I stated earlier, and therefore the proposed legislation will undercut viable businesses that can at times offer benefits and salaries to residents right here in Red Hook. Formula models also offer a tremendous amount of resources to ensure an owner is successful in starting and running a company. This is especially important to note considering most franchise owners have never been in business for themselves and rely on the structure and guidance of the franchise to ensure they are effective and remain in business. Very much like the crux that Rhinebeck has encountered, hospitality needs will continue to flood to Kingston area because most hotels are indeed franchises. This will result in further losses of tax revenue and tourism. Lack of hotel infrastructure has been an awful challenge in attraction of visitors to Dutchess County. The legislation does not take into consideration scalability. We cannot see into the future and don't know what businesses will close or thrive right here in our area. The proposed legislation will undermine and prohibit the replacement of such services that are valuable to our community. Most importantly, there are many local families, investors, and businesses that are currently established right here in the town of Red Hook that would not be rooted here if it weren't for the reliance on a formula business model, and to discount this is very short-sighted. As it is, New York State is one of the most difficult states to do business. Small businesses are closing. Just look around at the empty storefronts. Entrepreneurs are not starting new companies here in New York, and retail storefronts remain very empty. The state is among the highest in school property tax rates, fees, penalties, costs of transportation, workers' compensation rates, disability rates, insurance regulation, and the list goes on. To add further layers to this challenging economic environment will only suspend future investment here in the town of Red Hook. This regulation will stifle jobs, discourage free market principles, which keep the cost of goods and services lower, will create a limited market economy, further restricting the business environment and chances of the survival of any business.
Frank, I'm sorry, I just want to let you know your time's run out. Did you want to wrap up with a thought or two?
I'm almost there. I do have copies of a more detailed version. And we do propose that work be done to connect and consult with the business community further to ensure that the town has encompassed the points of view of the business community. As stated earlier by Mr. Baywright, they do pay school taxes and of course property taxes here. And it is so important that we listen to the needs of that community. So thank you again for your time tonight.
Thank you. Okay, more comments, sir? If you'd be kind enough to just let us know your name.
We'll do
When you
that.
come up there, thank you.
Good evening, Supervisor, Town Board members. My name is Jeffrey Sanft. I'm the current chair of the Dutchess County Regional Chamber of Commerce. Without reiterating what the previous speakers, most of them anyway, have said to the board, the chamber itself agrees with the letters that have been submitted by the Baywright Realty and also the one dated May 8th from the Dutchess County Regional Chamber of Commerce. We are opposed to this legislation prohibiting franchise formula type stores in the town of Red Hook. We believe these to be anti-business, potentially discriminatory, and that they'll negatively impact local families, investors, and businesses that depend on formulary businesses. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Who else would like to say some words? Young man, Michael?
Thank you. I'm Michael Rohatton. I'm a weekender, I admit it, but I'd rather not be. I have just a couple of thoughts. First, if I were a small business in Red Hook after the presentations that we've just heard, I would indeed be very depressed. I feel like it ought to be brought forward that the Chamber of Commerce and the one of the large landholders here is strongly advocating for a system that is frankly has the momentum of a locomotive behind it. They're billions of dollars in these large companies. And it is truly an unfair advantage to local businesses. The example of Amazon for a non-welcome mat, I don't think you could be more well, I don't have the word, but you couldn't be more descriptive. I live in the city a lot of the time. It's a prosperous, robust place. Neighborhood after neighborhood has been completely cleaned out of local stores by these large chains. It's astonishing, and in fact, not to fearmonger, but if there's going to be crime coming from anywhere, it is not from limiting those kinds of businesses. It is the weird desert nature of a town or a neighborhood that has been taken over by large-scale, organized businesses that suck money out of the economy and reward perhaps shareholders, perhaps the local franchise owner participates in that. I have no doubt that that would be a remarkable thing. But to have, unfortunately, the responsibility of businesses and of landowners and property owners is to somehow also use some imagination to create something. And anyway, I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to make some comments? Okay, sir.
Sir? My name is Dennis Collet. I'm a resident of the town up in East Curly Corners Road, and I've participated in a number of discussions about this concept of formula business and what its impact has been. I used to work for IBM, and driving down through Hyde Park is a perfect example to me of what the future would bring. And that is abandoned stores, boarded up buildings, an attempt at resurgence of local businesses alongside of those boarded up buildings. And that whole atmosphere that's created by, as Michael had pointed out just now, of these formula businesses kind of as predators on local businesses that are trying to struggle with unique products that they're offering. I think that that's one of the key reasons why I was really opposed to the notion of formula businesses. I think that if you parse these laws, you'll always find some faults with them and how they might, whether it's a drive-through issue or if it's something else. But the spirit of what this law is intended to provide is to preserve that rural character of the community. And if you look at our neighboring town of Red Hook, of Rhinebeck, you can see that they've been fabulously successful in terms of encouraging tourism to this area. I don't understand how that fits within the paradigm that Todd is bringing up, and those other gentlemen that spoke before me. But I think you have to address it from the perspective of what the community's intention is, and how, from a future perspective, how to be able to encourage people that want to live here to come and feel like this is a neighborhood that they want their kids to grow up in. I really liked Steve's comments about his own personal experiences here. I really think that's what's at the root of this. It's not the question of we want to prevent a certain type of business, it's we want to encourage a different type of business. So it's that should be our objective. And if it's going to discourage, entrepreneurs that want to come up and do something unique, whether it's, pottery or, some other trade or some other, skills that they want to pursue and still try to make a living, I think, that's what we should be striving to do and increase the agritourism in this area.
Okay, thank you very much. Would anybody else like to make some comments? Jim?
Yes.
We won't make you state your name, Jim Ross.
Jim Ross, town resident. Not to be repetitive of what's been said this evening, but I've got a few issues. One, approximately 5 different things I feel should definitely be different laws. They're all grouped together, it appears to me, to kind of like shove it in. That's number one. Number two, you know, we've proposed such drastic zoning changes before, and let's be very honest. This formula of business is a drastic zoning change. We had forums and there's public discussions, people on committees that discussed this for a long, long time. Now, to my knowledge, the formula of business idea has never been discussed by this board at a public meeting. It's been talked about in secrecy, behind closed doors for probably a year or more now, that I'm aware of. And that's just not the right way to go about it, even if you are in favor of these proposals. One, the amount we've already spent on planners and attorneys to come up with this proposal when there's been no public forum on it yet. And no discussion even at the board level to approve spending this money to spend that to do that. That's, you know, that's just plain wrong. It's not the right way to go about it. That's number one. And my final point is, you know, we've got a planning board that is extremely diligent, more diligent than they should be in many cases. However, they work very hard to control the site plan, what the property is going to look like, what the building's going to look like. I think if you get to the point where you're going to say, who can own that building and what's part of, you know, this is still America. And, you know, people still have a right to do that. And that's why we have a diligent planning board, to control these things, control the site plan so that the final product looks nice, regardless of who owns it or if it's a part of a much larger group. We say, okay, fine, you're part of that larger group, but you're going to tailor it because this is what we want Red Hook. And you don't get that or accomplish that by saying, no, the heck with you, you're a franchise business, that's outlawed in Red Hook. You can't do this, you can't do that. It's just wrong, it's not the American way. And, you know, those are my main issues, and not to be repetitive anything else that I find it upsetting.
Thank you, Jim. Would anybody else like to make some comments? Okay.
I will.
Okay. We'll get to you, Norm, right afterwards.
I'm Chris Close, Echo Valley Farm. My family's lived here for 75 years, and we celebrate Red Hook. I wore it on purpose because we are all here, and I submit that we are in a maelstrom of change in this country, and I've said that before at every public hearing. I've stood up and said what we need is what we have here, is people coming together in a public forum to exchange views and passions about Red Hook. And I think very much we've done that within the Economic Development Committee, which I'm secretary of, and I'm also on the board of Historic Red Hook, so I have a foot in both worlds. Claudine, my wife, and I had lunch today at the Enchanted Cafe. Sat outside, beautiful day, Red Hook, overwhelmed by the traffic. Was not the Red Hook, as I said to Claudine today, in the old days, when some of us were here going to school at Red Hook Central, and it was the school. There were 3,500 people in the town. That meant about 1,000 people, a little bit more in the village. Another 500 maybe in Tivoli, and the rest of us spread out through the farms. And it was quiet. You knew every dog, you knew every person, you knew every car that came by. What I'm pleading for is for us not to come to where this could be headed, which is a big brouhaha. But I think what my point is we need to open the process. 4 laws in one may or may not be the wish of the community. I don't know, but I think we need to have a further discussion about what we want and how do we control it, if we can control it. I am absolutely for private enterprise. I submit that we all are, and we all do not want what's happened to a lot of places around this country. I think we need to have some kind of an open dialogue here before we get into pardon me, your business, okay? So that's my point. I don't know how to, you know, Solomon-esque. You're volunteers, you got elected, and these are all neighbors and friends and relatives. How do we solve this problem together?
Okay.
That's a question to all of us.
Thank you, Chris. Would anybody else, Norm, did you want to make some comments? And then if we can, we might move on after you do.
Norman Gregg, I farm, I'm a lifelong resident. I don't care about business. Red Hook is already infamous to be one of the worst places to do business in the Hudson Valley. I had the misfortune a couple of years ago of purchasing B1 land in Upper Red Hook. It belonged to Gordon Sawpaw. He had been there from 1949 till 4 years ago, but he died too slowly, and there had been a farm equipment business there. I was told that you couldn't have farm equipment. I was looking forward to that, so I wouldn't have to drive 33 miles to Columbia Tractor. But that wasn't allowed because that's only allowed in the V2 zone behind the firehouse. I can't imagine farm equipment being sold behind a firehouse, but that's how it's planned in Red Hook. And then I had a veterinarian who wanted to treat dogs and cats. No animals were going to stay there. There was a place that people could bring their animals and have them treated. I was told, no, that's not allowed in B1. And I said, well, what can I have there? They said, oh, you could have a nightclub. I didn't think a nightclub was appropriate. The truth is that diversity in a community is what makes it work. And everybody talks about how there's too much traffic, but we constantly create zoning in Red Hook that creates more traffic, because if people are going to shop for their food or their needs, they drive to Kingston to do it. And I, in Red Hook, I grew up on Pitcher Lane. I used to walk, 60 years ago, I used to walk to Elmer Kahn's store in Upper Red Hook. Well, Elmer Kahn's store is gone. Now you have to walk to Cornucopia, also a good store. But you have to go down 9 to walk to it instead of down Pitcher Lane. But anything that I want to do on the thing, I'm not so concerned about the formula businesses. I'm concerned that the new law, we already have an extremely limited possibility about what you can do in the B1, and now in the new Hamlet Business District, you can do even less. And it's diversity that makes a community, and if you only have houses, if you only have residential, it doesn't create a good community either for the people living there or for the next generation. And you need some tax base, you need local stores where people can walk to, shop at, that are just around the corner, instead of going to town or to Rhinebeck or to Kingston to do your shopping. And I have a big problem with the process here. The intermunicipal meets on Friday mornings before the town board is before the town building is open, and they'll say, oh yeah, you can come in, you can come in. I was told that you're welcome at the meetings, just come around the back and knock on the window and we'll let you in. We'll open the door. That's not how the process happens. If you want a good process, you want a good community, you leave it open to the public, and you don't say, oh, you only have 3 minutes. I assume there'll be other public hearings on this law, and we'll get another 3 minutes. But you can have a better process. I know that everyone loves Trump's America, but you're running Red Hook like Trump's America. Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And this is not the way it's done.
Okay, thank you, Norman. And for the record, the door's open 8 o'clock in the morning in the front.
Now it is, but it wasn't last year.
All right, is that all the public hearing comments that we have for tonight? And again, we would encourage a continuation of this public hearing for the May 30th meeting. That's at 7:35. So shall we leave this open until such date?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. So why don't we go ahead and do that? We have a resolution to that effect, establishing a date for a public hearing regarding the adoption of the town board of the town of Red Hook of local law C as revised. And so we'll entertain that.
So moved.
All right.
Wait, sorry, but it says as revised.
Right.
I know it's the second item on our agenda.
Right. So why don't we
No,
just...
third, fourth
Why don't we...
item, so.
Right. Why don't we just entertain a resolution
Because we
to
haven't
keep
revised
it
it
open?
yet.
We'll keep it open for now. How does that work out for you, Chris? Shall we keep it open? And then when we get to it, we'll get to it on agenda item number 4, and then we'll entertain that resolution or modification thereof. Okay. Thank you all very much for coming, and again, a reminder, you're welcome to submit. We have, and I should note for the record, we have plenty of communications from residents and businesses and from the villages, or the village of Tivoli regarding this matter in writing, and you are welcome to submit your comments in writing as well between now and then at least. So let's move on to
Excuse me, did you have a vote? I think I do.
a vote to
I
keep
think I just heard one motion.
we had a motion to, well, we're keeping the public hearing
Continue the
open.
hearing to the 30th, but I didn't hear a vote.
Okay, continue to keep the public hearing open till the 30th.
So moved.
Okay,
Second?
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and then we will entertain more than that, okay.
So we'll be discussing this
We
in a
will.
little bit.
In a little
after,
bit.
You know, after
And-
we do a couple things, just in case anybody wanted to stay.
Yes, we are, item number 4 on the agenda for this. We have with us, however, a very special guest tonight, the superintendent of schools and the business manager, and Dawn from the Red Hook Public Library. And I understand you're here to give us a brief synopsis of what we'll be voting on next week, is that correct?
You have as much fun at your public hearings as we have at ours.
Oh, yeah.
So, no, I'm glad people are engaged. So this year, I'll try to be brief. It was a challenging year for us to stay under the cap. We are under the tax cap at 2.17%. It was challenging primarily because when we roll over our budget, we're typically looking at $1 million to $1.2 million, that gap that we need to make up. And we closed that in the expected ways with retirements and trimming expenditures, applying some fund balance. This year, we had a gap of 1.9 million, and that was really related to special education costs. We had unexpected costs that, you know, we had to incur. And at the end of the day, we had to trim back on staff more than we would have liked, although we think we were able to do it without significant program impact. So we had 8 retirees. We're not replacing 5 of those retirees, 1 at the elementary level and 4 at the secondary level, and we could do that at the secondary level mainly because over the last couple of years enrollment has been going down and it's hit the secondary level. We've taken out about 8 or 9 sections out of the elementary school over 8 or 9 years, and not as many in the secondary world. It's a lot harder to take out full positions in the secondary world. You're more likely to see parts of positions, but we're going to try to make it work. We know we can make it work and provide a rich opportunity for kids next year, just like this year, under the cap. I will say that it's becoming increasingly hard to stay under the cap, all things being equal. Next year we'll have a, you know, if we face a gap like this next year, we're going to have a real hard conversation about what kind of program we want to offer kids if we want to start to reduce opportunities. It's not something I would advocate for, but next year we're okay. We're okay in terms of staying under the cap. Mr. Martin's going to give you an update on the bus proposition, board members running for the 1 seat, and the public library.
Thank you. Thank you for letting us come out tonight. The last couple of meetings, we've had trouble remembering even to talk about the numbers. So Paul did mention that we were under the tax cap. Our tax levy increase as proposed in this budget is 2.17% increase, which is the same as our tax cap. We're actually just a hair under the tax cap. Our expenditures will be moving at 2.10% year over year under the proposed budget. Just a little bit of sort of philosophical history before I give you the details. You know, this will be, I believe, our 7th tax cap compliant budget consecutively. I think this is the 7th time we've done a budget since the tax cap came along, and we've been saying ever since it started that there's a structural imbalance, that the math doesn't work, and yet here we are in our 7th year of doing a tax cap compliant budget. How does that happen? Many of you will remember, I'm going to say about 5 years ago, we had a controller's report of the Red Hook Central School District. It was critical of our fund balance, critical of some of our surpluses in our budget. That's how we've survived 7 years under the tax cap, is by having that fund balance and those surpluses previously. But as Paul described, this year, 17-18, is really sort of the crossover year for us. It's the year where the tax cap begins to catch up with Red Hook Central School District. When that controller's report came out, one of the things that we looked at was the controller's own fiscal stress analysis. And one of the things in that analysis is a measure of a school district fund balances as they compare to expenditures, annual expenditures of the school district. And by that measure, you're able to look at all the districts in the state and get a fair comparison of how much fund balance they're keeping, because it's on a percentage basis of what they spend. And at the time, we were just a hair above being in the bottom 25% of districts in terms of what we keep as a fund balance. Since that time, we've actually dropped, as of June 30th of 2017, we've actually dropped a hair below. So we're now in the bottom 25% of districts in terms of what we maintain in terms of surpluses or fund balance to help offset the structural imbalance of the tax cap, which continues not to work, continues not to add up. When the tax cap first came out, folks asked us, well, what's your strategy to deal with the tax cap? And we said our strategy is, let's not be the first to fail. Let's see what happens when somebody else runs out of money before us. And yet here we sit in the bottom 25% in terms of having reserves and the ability to withstand that. So right now there's no appetite at the state level to do anything about the tax cap because nobody's failing. Folks are still holding things together. Cutting programs, going over the tax cap occasionally, as our neighbors just to the south did a year ago. But structurally, the math still doesn't work. So we've managed to make the math work because we've dug into previously obtained surpluses and fund balances. With regard to just a couple of details coming up, there are some other items on the ballot. There are 4 candidates running for a single position. They were actually having a candidates night this evening over at the high school, and Paul may have to jump in and help me, but I'll try to get them all. We have Dean Button, Lauren Arcamano, Dan Rinaldi, and Kate Corpus, all running for the single seat that's available, a 3-year term on the board. So that's also on the ballot next week. We have a bus proposition on the ballot. The bus proposition will be just a little bit larger than it has been in recent years. In recent years, it's typically been in the $250,000 to $300,000 range. Typically, it enables us to purchase 2 full-size buses and then a smaller vehicle, a van-like vehicle. Making the purchases at that rate, we have fallen farther behind our desired 10-year replacement schedule than what we would like to be. This year we're actually looking at a proposition of $550,000. If that were to be successful, that would allow us to buy 4 full-size buses, 2 Ford Expeditions, and 1 Ford Fusion. The smaller vehicles will help us to take back some special ed runs with just 1 or 2 children on the run that we're currently contracting. So we think we'd be more efficient if we had a few more smaller vehicles and we could do some of those 1 and 2 student runs in-house rather than contracting out. I would also add that in the time that I've been at the Red Hook Central School, every single year that we've done a bus proposition, we've had fund balance, cash available to purchase those buses. And that's had a couple of advantages. We've not only avoided interest costs, but the state also aids us on those purchases as if we had paid interest. So those have been pretty good investments in a period of time when interest rates have been like 10 and 12 and 20 basis points to get that extra boost from state aid. But this year I can say, based on what we've just told you about our financial position, it's a virtual certainty that if that proposition passes, we will for the first time borrow for at least some of that bus proposition. We will not be in a position to pay full amount cash for that entire proposition. But that item is also on the ballot. And then finally on the ballot is a proposition from the Red Hook Library. They have taken a tack where they look annually to make a modest increase to what they raise through our side of their revenue stream. And they have a proposition. They're here also this evening to talk to you about that. Before I turn it over to them, I would just tell you that if you run into people who want to vote next week and they're not registered, we do have one voter registration date. That happens tomorrow from noon to 9 p.m. at the Mill Road Elementary School in the 3-5 foyer. So folks can still get registered and be eligible to vote next week. And the statewide budget vote does happen on Tuesday, May 15th. That's next Tuesday, a week from today. And in Red Hook, that will happen from noon until 9 o'clock in the evening, and that will happen in the 3-5 cafeteria at the Mill Road Elementary School. If after the library talks you folks would like to ask us some questions, we can also do that.
Hi, Dawn.
Hi, thank you. Thanks for giving me a few minutes. I don't know how you guys stay up this late. I'm gonna barely make it. If you don't know, I'm Dawn Jardine. I'm the director of Red Hook Public Library in the village right here. And our library is still a very busy place. We had 80,000 visits last year. And it was a record year for program attendance with 14,000, a little more than 14,000 people participating in our programs. Circulation was up a little bit, which surprised me a little honestly, because we're seeing people using libraries in a different way now. Libraries are not just about checking out books anymore, although they're still doing that quite a bit. But increasingly they're coming to the library looking for experiences, looking for refuge, looking to make connections with other people. And so we are, we're changing the way that we do things to meet those needs. Our collection is diversifying. You can now come to the library and check out sewing machines, or a telescope, or coding toys for kids, handheld microscopes. We hope soon to have hotspots that you could check out, and tablets, e-readers, which would be especially advantageous for people who don't have those things at home, because not everybody does. That said, our expenses increase like everybody else's do. So we're asking for an additional $10,000 this year on our 259 tax levy. We like to use the 259 because it's more representative of our patronage, we think, because it's the entire school district. That is within our tax cap. The library has a slightly different tax cap than the school does, and that does fall within our guideline for this year. It equates to about $2.04 for the average owner of a $250,000 home in Red Hook. And it's about 2.8% of our total budget. I'm at the library every day. If you have any questions, feel free to give me a call or email me. Our budget's on the website. Our annual report is on the website from last year, so take a look. Thank you.
Thank you, Dawn. Paul, Bruce, thank you very much. You spoke about enrollment population down again. Are you looking at demographics and change? And the reason I ask is because I noted at another meeting last week, we had record sales of homes in our community last year. It looks like, there's some growth coming, especially in this Route 9 South region. The Hoffman project hopefully will be letting us know, but I think they've indicated they would like to break ground in 3 months or so. And there's a lot going on, or potentially going on, in reference to the earlier conversation as well about commercial development there. Anything you're seeing there?
I thought we sort of bottomed out last year and we started to head up. We had about a net increase of about 45 students. Since then, we sort of stabilized. We've gone down just slightly, so we're at 1,900 students and change. One of the things that I think we need to do is a new demographic study, and I say that because our study is from 2008, and it goes out to, I'm doing this from memory now, to 2019. and actually has us right, I mean, they were right on pretty much where they thought we'd be around 1900, 1950, something like that, so. But back then, they didn't envision, you know, development and that sort of thing that was going to happen, as I recall at least.
Do you do those through the state ed, or do you have to hire like a third party?
We hired a third party last time. Yeah.
And it looks at the whole school district,
Yep.
not just the town,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, they would, yeah. They would come and meet with you, find out what's happening in terms of development.
Right.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And our roll, our tax roll is increasing, that's one thing that we're happy about. You know, values are not only stabilizing, but going up without significant growth, but obviously we would expect that to continue. Or hope that that would continue going forward in relation to your discussion about the cap and its implications on the budgets. So, you know.
Sorry, I've been, in a couple of presentations I've shared that we think about the state aid that we've received since I started in 2006. The share of our revenue from state aid in 2006 was in the high 40s. Now it's down in the low 30s. So it's really shifted to the local taxpayer, really the burden of the schools. And at the same time, we've had a shift in terms of our population and we have more economically disadvantaged kids now than we've ever had. So we have moved from around 8 or 9% in 2006 to 23 is the number that's the most recent that I have. So that's really significant. So less state aid, more needy students. I would just say that the formula is broken at the state level. You know, it seems that's pretty clear.
All right, well, we thank you all. Any more questions before we let these nice people go home?
Thank you for having us, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And again, the reminder, those votes are Tuesday, May 15th from 12 to 9 at Mill Road.
Right.
Okay. Very good. So we've got just some quick business to dispense with here. I don't think would take much time if we could. As was referenced earlier today, we are continuing a multi-year project at the recommendation of our highway superintendent to correctly post the speed limits and then address those inappropriate speed limits in our community. Forest Park was a neighborhood where the signs were changed. There have been for decades illegal speed limit signs in Forest Park. Those signs were changed out, and we have a resolution here requesting modification of those speed limits for all the roads in Forest Park: Edgewood, Appletree, Birchwood, Cedar, Kalina, and Overlook Drives, Evergreen and Shady Lanes, and Mountain View Court within the Forest subdivision. And I don't think I need to tell you that 35, which is the speed limit there, is an inappropriate speed limit for what is essentially an entirely residential neighborhood with one way in and one way out. And so I've prepared for your consideration this resolution to submit to New York State Department of Transportation. I will remind all of you that New York is a home rule state until we actually want to set speed limits on our roads for the safety of our residents. And New York State, for some reason, wants to tell us what is an appropriate speed limit for our local roads. So this is the resolution I've prepared. It's got a few whereases, but essentially it's all about a residential neighborhood and the safety of our residents. And that is resolution number
25.
25. Thank you very much, Sue. And I so move.
Second.
Thank you, Sarah. Is there any discussion, further discussion about this? Okay. If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Next up, another quick thing, an ministerial thing that we attempted to do last meeting, but we needed approval from some landowners who have a common driveway, and it's to accept the name, and that is for subdivision on Bud's Corners Road, and they have proposed Red Oak Lane as the name of that common driveway. For E911 purposes, there needs to be a name associated. I don't see this up here on this other end. Associated with each common driveway. This is resolution number 26, and that is accepting Red Oak Lane as a common driveway name for the Lewick subdivision.
So moved.
Alright.
Second.
Alright, any discussion, all in favor? Aye. Thank you very much, so that is item number 2 on the agenda. We've had item number 3, the Central School District budget presentation, and item number 4 is local lawsuit. So we've had some comments by town board members, from information sessions, from residents and businesses, some input, some feedback. And I'm wondering, Michelle, would you be kind enough to maybe walk us through a few of those? Not listed.
I've prepared for you a list of the recommended revisions based on the public comments from your board, and I met with the planning board last night as well, and also from our office. I do want to say that the planning board did meet last night. They have a copy of the local law, the full environmental assessment form, the coastal assessment form, and they did determine last night in their meeting that the proposed local law is consistent with the policies of the local waterfront revitalization program, the LWRP. So they did vote that, they did prepare that form, but I don't have the signed copy of it with me because Kathleen, as you know, has been out of the office for a couple of days, and so we will get that to you as soon as we can, but I do want you to know that they took action on that. So these are a summary of the revisions based on the comments of the public and the boards. I did prepare for you a red line draft of the local law, and I printed out for you all of the pages that have been changed, where changes have been incorporated, so that you can see exactly the language that's been proposed there. But just to go through them, and I'm going through them in the order in which they appear in the local law. So first of all, for food trucks, there was a request that the size of the signs for food trucks be revised. So we've proposed that the food trucks with a seasonal permit, which is the 9-month permit, be allowed one sign on each of 2 sides of the food truck, maximum of 8 square feet in size, in addition to a freestanding sign, a maximum of 6 square feet in size. For food trucks with a daily permit, which has been pointed out that they may be less likely to want to repaint their truck to fit the town standards because they're only coming up for a few days. The proposal would be no limits on the signage on the truck itself, and that they also be allowed 1 freestanding sign, a maximum of 6 square feet. We've also recommended that the reference to menu boards with reference to signs be deleted, because that is a content-specific reference, which is not allowed under the First Amendment. So we recommend that that simply be changed to a freestanding sign. That gives also the food truck operators the opportunity to decide what they want to put on that sign, if they want to put their menu or their name or whatever they want to put on that sign. So that's actually a technical correction. Another technical correction that was noted by the planning board last night in the definition of restaurant. The current zoning has 2 different definitions. One is restaurant, one is fast food restaurant. You're doing away with the fast food restaurant. There was still some language remaining in the definition of restaurant that was distinguishing that use from a fast food restaurant. So we've just recommended that those phrases be deleted from the definition of restaurant. In the description of the Hamlet Business District, the next couple of recommendations come from The meeting with the residents of Upper Red Hook, they made some suggestions, and I've incorporated those in here. They asked that the phrase in the description of the intent of the HB district in 143-6A include the language compatible with the town's overall rural character, in addition to the language and with the historic character of the hamlet of Upper Red Hook. Is a little bit broader, more consistent with the original B1 language. Another technical correction is that section 143-18D, which is the section on accessory structures, should be revised to include the HB district in the list of districts where subsurface utility systems may be located on the same lot as the related principal or accessory structure, whether or not that system is within the same zoning district, which is local law A that you just adopted last month, I believe it was. And that needs to be carried forward into this local law, so again, that's a technical correction. It was recommended by the residents that in the HB district, in subsection B2, there was a reference to parking lots being, should be located to the side or rear of the yard, and specifically 20 feet back from the front facade of the building, front facade of the principal building. And it was noted that some of those lots are relatively narrow and that may be difficult to accomplish, and so we recommend that that be replaced with just parking shall be located to the side or rear of the principal building, which is also, by the way, consistent with the site plan criteria in section 115. So that's, I've incorporated that revision for you as well. Residents recommended that you consider the following additional uses to be permitted in the HB district. Food trucks with a daily permit, equipment rentals and or sales for small household-related items, and farm markets 1 and 2. A farm market 3 is by definition only allowed in the ag business district, but a farm market 1 and 2, so I've incorporated those changes as well. And last of all, I recommend that footnote 8 in the area and bulk table regarding the front yard setback in the HB district be clarified. It currently says, you remember that on the east side of the road, the front yard setback would be 40 feet. On the west side, because of different characteristics there, it would be 100. And the language says, except for parcels located on the west side of Route 9. I think that's not really clear. I think you intend to say, except for parcels with lot frontage on the west side of the road. Because I don't think you intended for the parcels on Pitcher Lane to also have a 100-foot setback. That doesn't seem to be appropriate there. So that just clarifies that the 100-foot front yard setback applies only to the lots that actually have frontage on the west side of Route 9. So those are the changes that I've incorporated into the new draft.
Okay, did you all have some thoughts on those changes, potential changes to the draft? I know, Sarah, some of the sign stuff, does that adequately address what you brought up, or is at least moving in the right direction, what you brought up as far as flexibility for signage on the food truck?
It's moving in the right direction. I think, I've told Michelle also, I think the 8 square feet is still too small.
Small, okay.
I just, my opinion is that food trucks, part of why they're attractive is that they're unique, and you know, just they can be all kinds of different decorations, and that usually includes things we consider signage. And I realize there's a difference between, as somebody said, the dancing potatoes versus the actual menu, but a lot of times those are also sort of together, and I just think it's going to create a difficult problem for people trying to enforce it, and for people who want even a seasonal permit. So I like that the daily permit now allows anything to be on the, or you know, no limitation on the food truck signage that's on the food truck itself. I think that should be for both seasonal and daily. That's my opinion. I think the limitation on the exterior, the standalone sign is fine, although I'd like to see that be maybe 8 square feet instead of 6. Again, I just think it's really small the way it's
I'm sorry, so you said it'd like to be how many versus 6?
8 instead of 6. I don't know, just something larger. I feel like these numbers are arbitrary, and I wish that, you know, I know that when in our code we have ways of determining what signage is appropriate for a building based on frontage, and that just, isn't really appropriate for food trucks. So I get that we have to pick a number and that it should be a sign that's not going to, you know, impede somebody's view along the road, and that these sites are maybe unpredictable in terms of where they may be, and so we have to come up with something that's reasonable and small, but.
So just a couple of comments on that. I did go back and look at the original draft of the food truck law, which was prepared by a town committee, and they had a footnote on the 6 square foot sign, and it said that this was consistent with the size of the sign that's allowed for our roadside stand.
Okay.
So that's really what they based it on, and I think the uses are, you know, are similar. I also added language in the local law how the sign on the food trucks would be measured, because this is actually a separate chapter, even though it's related to the zoning, because it cross-references to, you know, the zoning districts and so on. It is a separate chapter, and so the definitions of sign area in the zoning law would not really apply here. So I did incorporate some language defining that the sign shall consist only of the letters and symbols painted in or affixed on the food truck, and the sign area shall be calculated as the smallest single continuous perimeter enclosing the extreme limits of such sign. So it's not going to include the whole truck, and there is a way to measure, you know, what is the size of the sign. It wouldn't include the dancing potatoes if they weren't in the area where the lettering is. The other thing to consider is that, you know, ordinarily food trucks are permitted in most communities in sort of commercial centers, commercial districts, and one difference that you have here in the town of Red Hook is that you want to allow them in another business district, which is the ag business district, which is, you know, located in many areas throughout the town. So I think that what you need to strive to do is to balance, you know, if you're going to have seasonal food trucks parked on a farm, to sort of balance the interests of that landowner with neighboring landowners, which may not be as imperative if it was only located in a commercial center, for example. So those are some considerations to think about.
So the zoning review committee came up with that 6 square feet, that's what you're saying?
They originally did. I went back and looked at my notes, and that's where that number came from. So those are.
All right. Any of those other, like the next thing, the definition, well, that looks to be mostly just technical correction. And also the language scripting seems fairly minor. Another technical correction. And then the recommendation on the setback of being at the front of the building line. That seems reasonable, given that this particular commercial district is also shallow.
Yeah,
Many
especially on
hard
the east side of
districts.
the road. The lots are relatively shallow for a business district. yes.
Right, so if we were to say 20 feet behind,
Yeah, I think it
then
may
what-
be more difficult. Usually you have that setback so that you have an area for landscaping, but I think in this case, the point was well taken that it may be difficult to always provide that setback for the parking. So I think to the side of the rear is fine, and it's consistent, as I said, with the site plan criteria.
Okay, and if there needs to be some screening, that's something that would obviously the planning board would take up.
Yeah, they
What's
could locate it
appropriate
in other areas. yeah.
in that situation.
Where are we at now with the food trucks and with signage?
Oh, I'm sorry, Harry, I was jumping down, I was going down the list. I was on number 5 on this sheet. But did you want to go back to signage and the amount of signage?
So, well, I like Sarah's initial idea of not limiting what's on the truck.
Okay.
And 8 square feet works very well when you buy a sheet of plywood.
Okay, you're pushing. Okay.
And 8 square feet, you know, this is 3 feet high. 4 feet high is like here. It's not that great.
As I say, I mean, it was based on what was a comparable use, so I think that's where they came up with the recommendation.
I'd allow it 2 by 4 and 8 square feet.
Okay.
Would be the result.
And you're okay, because I know you were very sensitive about signage at the last meeting, but you're saying you're okay now with
Well, we're
the
going to
truck
have, we're going
having
to allow very
whatever
few
on it.
food trucks. So we may as well let them be successful.
Well, doesn't so this proposed 1A says, with a seasonal permit, it's a maximum 8 square feet in size on each of 2 sides of the food truck, plus the freestanding sign for 6 feet. So is that addressing what you'd like, Harry?
8 square feet, I think, is going to be too small. You know, the one food truck we have in town now has substantially more than that, and it is not a lot.
I'm not sure that's the case, but it's, you're measuring the lettering, and I think that the methodology that Michelle referenced, I think that would certainly fit within the 8 square feet, but.
I mean, it's a total of 16 square feet.
Well, but
On
usually
both
with a
sides of the
food truck,
truck.
you can't see both sides of a food truck. It'd be really hard to park in a way that people can see both sides, so I guess I said to Michelle also, I feel like, why not say 8 square feet on each side or the equivalent on the one side, you know? I don't see why we're allowing like on both sides, if part of it is we don't want them to have a large exterior sign because we don't wanna draw too much attention to them, but in the sign, people said, the food truck is the sign. Well, if the food truck is the sign, but half of that sign is on the other side,
That's useless.
yeah, I just don't.
And
8 square feet is not, that's not a large sign.
the typical food truck has a door for entrance and exit toward the front of the whole truck, and then it has a big opening for service. You can't put anything underneath that opening, so you don't really have a lot of space left. So.
Okay. Christine, you
I'm just trying to figure out, what do you think this flag is, like 3 by 3?
I think
Just to
this
get an
it
idea.
would be about a 3 by 4. Maybe not quite a 3. Don't make me get out the tape
No, I'm
measure.
just trying, you know, so that we have a visual aid
Yeah,
for how big that is.
yeah.
I mean,
I think a 3 by 4 maybe, but did you want to, you've dealt with a lot of sign requests over the years. Did you want to
Right.
speak to possibly going a little further with signage on the truck?
well, I just think it's, you know, it is important to realize that this is, you know, it's a new business use that we're allowing in the town in certain districts. And in this case, you know, food related. And we do have existing permanent restaurants and other food related businesses that have to adhere to signage. So if the proposal that was originally in there of the 6 square feet, you know, matches what permanent business would have to deal with, then I'm sort of inclined to go with that and try to keep it as fair as we can, as equal as we can.
It's equal. Okay.
The 6 square feet was the size of the sign that was permitted for a roadside stand
Oh,
on the existing zone.
Mhm.
A roadside
So they kind of tried to match it with what they thought was comparable use.
as a roadside stand.
I'm not as worried about that roadside sign as I am about the food trucks themselves. If this is 12 square feet, we think roughly somewhere in there, right?
Maybe.
If it's 3 by 4.
So I'm
but
just
it's-
trying to think, Rick, can you
Probably
fit more
less.
than this on one side of a truck? If you've
Well,
got
we
the big
talked
window.
about, okay, so last time when I said what I thought, you said the trucks were too large to accommodate having their own decorations. So we said we allow a truck up to 35 feet in length. So this would certainly fit, right? If that's what we allow. But I was told that that was too large.
We can always let the
I-
ZBA handle
We
it.
have 2
I just-
food trucks in the town, don't we? Maybe why don't you want to compare the sign sizes?
I looked at the signage.
I mean, I have looked at those, okay, so the 2 food trucks we already have, and I'm really trying not to think of them because we should be writing this for any food truck that might wanna come to town, right? But when we think of those, the one has a tiny sign that you'd never be able to read from the road, not ever. And the other one has a very large, clearly lettered sign with no logo at all, just letters. And it's like little panels of wood that are all hung together. Now, by the way you wrote that, I'm not sure, would you measure each panel of wood and add it up? You
All the
would-
way around.
All the way around, right? Yeah, so
Well, I don't think the objective
I feel like they're
should be
both
for you to be able
tasteful,
to
and
read the
I'm not-
menu as you drive by from the road.
I agree, I don't think you should be able to read the menu necessarily from the road, but again, I just feel like they're both good examples of what food trucks are, which is that they're unique. And I just don't see why we're trying to restrict it by some arbitrary number in terms of what's on the truck.
We have to pick something.
And he gets critical, why are we
Right,
restricting
so we've already
anything?
picked for the daily that we agree that they can have whatever they want on the truck.
But that's because it's only parked for a few days, so it doesn't have as great an impact,
Right.
you know, as a truck that might be parked for the whole season, so.
Right.
Yeah. Bill, did you want to chime in on signage?
No, I mean, the ZRC spent months and months talking about the size of signs, and they were fine with the 6 feet. That goes back about 3 years ago. So it's been very well discussed, and I have no problem with your dimensions of 8 and 6.
Has the ZRC reviewed this draft?
The ZRC drafted the original.
The original draft.
Well, I know the original draft, but it's changed quite a bit since then. hasn't it?
Not a lot, no.
Well, the intent has the language, of course, in there.
I'm flexible to increase the amount of signage there. I am, you know, I will state about food trucks, they're wonderful, they're unique. What brings people to our community, I'm looking to the county chamber folks over there. Unique being the operative word. And they don't require signs, because everybody knows about them, because they're supposedly terrific. I can only go to one of them.
But they do require menus, right?
But they do require menus, and so I'm inclined to be more flexible. I did visit the two that are currently here to also discuss and see their signage. I would be okay with going to 8 square feet, sure. And I would also be okay, I think, with what's on the truck, but I'm a little nervous about that. But we could start with just allowing what's ever on the truck, in my mind. And then if we have to make amendments, and I would say this about any aspect of this law, which is about eliminating inappropriate commercial uses, a single topic, in the various commercial districts, and governing one commercial use that is not referenced in our code. So it's to me, in my mind, it's a singular law.
Well, I'm all right with this as proposed as a change, with the 8 square feet and the 6 square feet, and then on the daily permit, it is what it is.
You're not, you wouldn't go higher on the freestanding sign, maximum of 6 square feet?
8 square feet.
Yeah, the 8 square feet as proposed, 8 square feet.
No, I'm saying
Maximum eight.
freestanding to be 8 square feet. I would entertain
So you're
Sarah's
suggesting
suggestion of
8 and 8?
8 and 8? No, I'm sorry, yeah. I'm suggesting 8 for freestanding, and then allow the truck to have what signage is on there.
As long, God bless you. If
As
it's,
long
if
as
it's
it's
painted on.
Painted on, yeah,
Painted or affixed, we say.
painted or affixed.
That's fine.
Is that, can we compromise on that?
Yeah.
To start with, and then we'll.
So 8 square feet for the freestanding sign and no limit on the sizes or numbers of signs on the trucks, whether
Okay.
they're daily or seasonal.
Okay.
Is that what you're suggesting, is that what you're
Could
asking?
we compromise on that?
Yes.
Okay.
So the 8 square foot on each of 2 sides is out?
Yep.
So we're gonna just eliminate E1 altogether, and we'll just say 8 square feet in size for the freestanding, and then signs of, there shall be no limit on the size or number of signs on the truck. So, is that what you're suggesting?
Now, wait a minute. The street, the one that's gonna stand out by the street or outside is gonna be 2 boards like this. That's my perception.
The freestanding.
The freestanding one.
Yeah.
So you're going to have 2 signs that are 8
Well, now you're
square feet.
introducing a different element to it,
No,
now we
no,
have to think back, because that's 2 faces and.
What do you do that's a reasonable way to tell someone, you put something out near the road and people coming in both directions can see it?
Well, somebody could, if they're gonna be a seasonal use, maybe they make a sign that they put in, you know, a 5-gallon bucket with cement or something, or with dirt so they can have flowers around it or
Batch has a
something.
post, right? It's a sign on a post, right? It's like basically a permanently installed sign seasonally, right? And Bubby's has nothing. So I just think like there's gonna be a variety, but
Right, so I mean, we can't really say it's
We
going
can't
to
say.
be a sandwich board sign, or it's going to be a
but if it
post
was a
sign,
sandwich
or-
board sign, would that mean you've
4
got?
square
how
feet
would-
on each side,
4
yeah.
square feet on each side, okay, yeah. As long as it's clear to the zoning enforcement officer what it needs to be, then.
Okay,
And then renumber, yeah.
okay.
Okay, so we're eliminating subsection 1, and subsection 2 will become subsection 1, and subsection 3 will become subsection 2. Okay? And
Okay,
we're changing the 6 to the 8
okay.
for the freestanding.
All right, and then those technicals, did anybody have any problem with the technical corrections? The definition of restaurant as suggested by our planning board, the technical correction, number 4, the technical correction, I guess that's it. So number 3, the recommendation to change the language, are you all okay with that? Compatible with the town's overall rural character and with the historic character of the hamlet of Upper Red Hook? Are we okay with that change as suggested by Michelle?
I think that's an improvement.
Okay. Yeah? Yes, Harry?
Yeah.
Okay. Number 5 relates to parking lots being required to the setback. So are we okay with having it begin at the front of the store?
You just took the 20 feet out, right?
We took
No
the
matter what
20
we
feet
do
out.
there,
20
it's
feet
gonna work with all the
high.
parcels.
Hmm?
It's just too much
Vanessa, what?
diversity.
Well, it makes it a little easier to do business if you can park and you can put the parking on the side as well as
Mhm.
behind. In those shallow, challenging parcels there, okay? Number 6 is consider allowing the following uses in the HB district. So there was a recommendation by the residents at Upper Red Hook is to at least consider daily food trucks, daily permit food trucks, if not ones stationed out there for up to 9 months. And I'm very concerned about the competition that these food trucks may have on our restaurants and our sandwich places and coffee houses, and so I think we have to be very careful about where we locate them. There's a lot of our unique businesses who have been here for a while, that it wouldn't take much for them to pack up and go home. And so if we are serious about having downtowns and centers and green spaces, let's be sure that we're, sensitive to that with, business and fair competition for that
But
business.
it's only daily, it's not 9 months.
Well, that's why the recommendation here is that it would only be for if they want to have a daily, if there's a business up there that wants to have a food truck for a special, event for a weekend or whatever. But parking food trucks in Hamlet business for up to 9 months
And
on
that's
all
not
those
what-
parcels.
That's not
Right.
what is in the law.
I know,
Okay.
I'm just speaking to,
Okay.
those who
But
may
these
want to
are
have it
already
all
in
the
the law,
time.
the May
I've
8th
included
draft.
these revisions so you could see what they would look
Yeah.
like in the local law. I can take any out that you want to take out or revise them.
Did you-
My biggest problem with food trucks there is safety.
Right.
You have high-speed traffic, and you can have, somebody suddenly stopping for food, you're asking for, it's dangerous.
Well, then you would be in favor of less, not more,
Yes,
or, okay.
just for that reason.
Would this be a good compromise we could live with, to allow the daily permit ones?
Well, if we must. Okay.
We must?
I said,
It
if we
said if
must.
we must.
If we must, so you'd rather have none?
I'd rather have none. I mean, if somebody has an event, we allow them to use the food truck anyway, if you have a family event or something like that.
Right.
That's in a different section.
You want to have food trucks?
There's a maximum, there's a limit on the number of permits you can be issued per property for a year. 3 daily
Right.
permits per year, so there
Right,
would be,
so you can
that
do
was
this 3
further
times.
limited, if Harry's concerned.
So what did the info session with the Hamlet Business District residents, what did they suggest?
This is what they
They
suggested.
wanted to
The
allow it
daily.
on a daily basis.
Daily, okay.
One or
Did
two,
we
doesn't
come
matter.
up with a definition for small household related?
That's not
Different
currently
rental?
in zoning law. If you would like us to try to come up with a definition of that, we can try to do that.
I
Not
think
cur-
it's sort of ripe for problems if we don't come up with something.
Well, if we don't have a definition, I would make a recommendation that we not include it at this moment.
Well, so you're saying that the equipment rental and or sales, small household related, that's one of the recommendations, and you're saying that appears in our use table, but we have no definition for it.
Yeah, you've never had a definition for that, or for the large equipment either.
Or for the large equipment. So I was wondering, like, for example, in this law, we talk about ag support businesses being allowed and exempt from the formula business ban. And so what would that be if you had an ag support business? Is that,
No, that's not related to this.
it's not, it wouldn't fall under equipment rental and or, I was looking at the use table, I was trying to figure out, well, where would that go? Because I don't see those in the use table, ag support businesses.
No, they're there.
That may be in the ag business district itself, if
Okay.
you have to look, you know,
Because
the
that
the ag
table's not
business,
included
the ag
here.
business district has its own section of uses. It's not listed in the table because they're very different from the types of uses that you get in traditional zoning
Okay.
laws. So they appear separately in that section, I think it's 39.1.
Okay.
Well, so I think either we need to add a definition, or if we don't wanna do that, then we need to take it out. Equipment rental under sales, small household related.
I'd like to have
Then
a
you got heavy
revised,
also.
like to have a revised draft available for our next public hearing, so can we introduce a definition at this point? Or that's something, are you okay with us including that without a definition
That's a
in
Chris
our?
question.
Well, look at, you already have these definitions in your code you have for a long, long time, so presumably, those may or may not have been applied for as a permit, but they have existed in your code for a while. And
Yeah,
heavy
small
equipment
household.
probably has
You know,
I know, but I think the
Small.
distinction is, the distinction between,
Equipment rental.
I assume,
And then heavy.
between heavy equipment.
Is equipment like rental, a cherry
Right, you have
picker,
two
whatever?
different, right, you have two different
This is-
categories,
this
equipment
is
rental and or
party
sales heavy,
parcel. Okay.
equipment rental and or sales small household related.
Okay, so we rely on the planning board to determine,
Well, the zoning enforcement officer.
zoning enforcement
Right, I mean-
officer to determine what small
I'm
household.
not saying you couldn't add some language to clarify it, but
Okay.
it does
Well, we
seem to
could
be,
do that.
it's, and Michelle, it's existing language, right?
It's
You're just
existing,
changing
Okay.
the,
it's existing
permitted
language, it's
area.
been on the books since '93. I mean, I believe, you know, there's one in being considered right now, it doesn't seem to have been a problem identifying what the use was,
Okay.
so.
All right, well then I stand corrected, and I would be happy to include that as an allowable use in the HB district, if you all felt that was appropriate.
Okay with me?
I'll go with the group.
You'll go with the group?
I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
Okay.
The farm
You're
market,
you're
one
talking
and
about
two is
allowing a
allowed,
small,
even though it's
small
not-
household related.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. Farm market 1 and 2?
But we thought a farmer's market would be
Well,
allowed, but not
the
a farm
farmer's
market.
market, there's two different types of things. There's the farmer's market, which is a, you know, two or more, like something what you have like in the Red Hook municipal parking lot. And then you have a farm market, which is accessory to a farm, which has a specific definition, it has to be, you know, basically New York State Ag and Markets definitions. And so it was proposed not to be included in the HB district because it's not very likely that you'd actually have any farms in that district. But somebody pointed out that someone may own a farm that's adjacent to land in the HB district. They may buy that lot and consolidate those parcels, and then it might be desirable to be able to have their farm market in the HB district. So we thought there was no harm certainly in including it.
Well, then we don't have to have it in the zoning, because if they have a farm, they have the right to have a farm.
But they have, but I think it should be really clear. I
Yeah,
do.
right.
I think it should be clear that they're entitled to that in the HB district.
It's gonna give them a double approval.
Yeah, well, I
think
like
what-
clarity.
You know, my concern is that it's very clear that it has to be accessory
Yes,
to
it's-
that farm and that location. It's not accessory to a farm. Right, so a
And
Columbia
that's already
County.
included in all of the language in your ag business
Okay,
district.
because all right, so we don't want some out-of-area farmer coming with a farm market.
It has to
in
be
that
accessory
district.
to a farm parcel, so it has to be accessory, the farm has to be on that parcel where the
Parcel.
farm market
Yeah,
stands.
well, then I would totally support that. I think, you know, whatever we can do to help support our local farmers helps us out. Agreed? Enough of a consensus, okay. Revise footnote number 8, area and bulk, except for parcels with lot frontage on the west side, and that's so that we don't impose that
Confusion
on
with
the
Pitcher Lane, because there was some discussion, you know, over the last year or so about the outline of the district and so on and so forth. And so The parcels on Pitcher Lane are going to be in the HB district, those parcels that are currently in the B1. And I don't think a 100-foot setback would be appropriate for those parcels that front on Pitcher Lane because they're very close to the road. It would be inconsistent with the existing character there. So I just recommend to clarify that was stressing that the 100-foot setback is only for those parcels with actual lot frontage on the west side of Route 9.
I'm certainly okay with that. I wouldn't want a huge setback there on Pitcher Lane.
Well, it just wouldn't work if you didn't do it.
Yeah. Agreed on that, folks?
Yes.
I think that's the last one we have on communications. I did not hear from tonight's public hearing any changes that I would like to make tonight. I would like to consider those comments that were given to us, and especially the ones in writing that I haven't yet had a chance to fully digest, though I have read them both in writing. And I would also like to further read the written letters that we received on the topic, as well, the referrals from the county and the referrals from the planning board. But for tonight, I am comfortable revising the draft of the law, or as you listed, Michelle, and making that draft available for our next town board meeting public hearing, which would be May 30th at 7:35.
So is this where we have to finish up the resolution?
And this is where I, so,
Did you, sorry, did you,
go ahead.
yeah, did you say we have received a referral from county planning, or we have not?
Yes, we have received.
In your packet.
It's in your packet.
It's in your
It's in the
packet.
packet, oh.
That's at the back of the
So-
packet, that is, at the back of Michelle's draft law that's in your packet, I believe. At the very
So,
end.
would you all entertain,
Hey, can I just say, so did anybody have a chance to think about the other use changes that I had suggested last time?
the use changes?
In the use table to permit day camp, commercial nursery, and I think there was one other, but I'm forgetting which one,
Yeah,
in the HB.
yeah, I think the,
Are we moving on those?
So I wasn't aware of those, I'm sorry.
I brought them up at the
Those
last,
were
the one
up
where
at
you
the
were
last
here.
I know, I
April 10th.
didn't catch that. You wanted to add day camp, commercial nursery, what was the third one?
I was trying to find my notes from last time and now I can't.
I reviewed all those the other day, your suggestions on that topic. And the concern I think that was articulated was the appropriateness on the curve there and that state highway of having those types of business uses. And so,
The curve of the state highway within the HB district?
right, within the HB district and the nature of that. We just heard from a resident who's nervous about his kids in Forest Park, which is a subdivision designed to have slow
Right, so like,
driving.
as I said at the other meeting, you know, whether or not a day camp is actually safe for a parcel there would be up to the state. Those, you know, decisions about traffic and,
Well,
adequate
no,
parking and all those
that's-
things.
that's
Day
not-
camp is different than daycare.
Yeah, right, but
no,
aren't
the
those
day,
still
the
regulated by
state
the
is not
state?
regulating things like traffic and curb cuts, that,
No, no,
that's
I know,
a-
not,
yeah.
I mean like parking, adequate parking and
That's really a
stuff
planning
like
board
that.
decision.
I remember someone wanted to do some sort of daycare, day camp on the corner of 9G there, the northeast corner. That was the, I think there were tons of people who came out speaking about the danger at that intersection, and it proved out, right? I mean, that became a dangerous intersection, and we lost lives at that intersection.
You talking about like Kelly Road or?
No, 9G and
Tivoli.
and Tivoli,
Oh.
West 78th Street, and West 78th,
Yeah, day camp
Route
is currently
78.
not permitted in the B1 or the B2. I mean, I am a little concerned about safety of children in terms of having a day camp in such proximity to such a busy road.
Speak up.
I'm sorry,
She's concerned about the safety of
safety.
children.
So the day camp is.
Where, you said?
For a
On
day
the-
camp.
On the B1 or the HB or the B2, you know, in the business districts, I
Yeah.
think there's a lot of traffic, there's a lot of people coming in and out.
Traffic is a real problem.
Yeah, I know that the task force discussed that and they were concerned about traffic. It is currently allowed in the LD, the RD5, the RD3, and the institutional.
So
I
it
just
wasn't
think that
allowed,
church-
oh, sorry, I just want to clarify, it wasn't allowed or isn't currently allowed in the B1?
No, it's not currently allowed.
So it's not allowed, so this would be a new use you would introduce, okay.
Now, the
So-
daycare center, a child daycare center is currently allowed as a special permit in the B1 and in the HB, it's proposed to be allowed as well.
Right,
So-
yeah.
So,
I
I mean,
think
I
that
believe the
church
church
parcel-
has a daycare center, for example.
Yeah, the church parcel, I think, just presents a special challenge, you know, it's kind of a unique parcel, and I just think it seems like the kind of place you could have a day camp, and it seems a shame to restrict it without something more like a special permit or some other restriction on like parcel size, or I don't know, like you said, those things are kind of up to the planning board, so.
But if the, so it would be a day, but, you know, the day camp would be the primary use. So you're suggesting that would be like a secondary use for a church, which is the primary use of the property in that particular.
I mean, so
case.
with the use table, like if a day camp is restricted, then can it be a secondary use if the primary use
It's
is
limit,
allowed?
a day camp by definition is limited to summer and other school vacation periods. So it could be, but I don't know what else they would use the property for the rest of the year.
Yeah, no, but that's pretty common for churches to hold day camps.
Well, they have, the daycare is allowed.
Day camps though, they're pretty common. But so if a use is restricted, it can't even be a secondary use, right? Yeah, so I'm just saying, I'm not trying to envision the future
No,
as
my
a church being a
point,
day camp.
my point is, if you allow day camp as a primary use,
Uh-huh.
you can't have two primary uses on a parcel. So
Well,
it's
you
a
could in the
primary.
business district though. Yes, the
In the
business
Hamlet
district.
business
Yes,
district, though, in the
yes,
HB2?
yes.
Mm,
It allows
it's
more
gonna
than
be
one
in
principal
HB.
building or use in the district, because it's a business district, so.
Yeah, but I thought in the HB, but okay.
No, it is.
I'll
It's a business
look that
district.
over again. But anyway,
Yeah, I think we have
I'm
time
not,
to
I'm
consider
not in
this.
favor of it,
Yeah.
of the day camp, because it's just because of the traffic
Yeah,
issues.
I think we have time to consider this, because that's probably the only property you were contemplating,
Mhm.
right?
I mean,
And
off the
it-
top of my head,
Right,
I suppose there's other ones, but yeah,
cornucopia day camp.
you never know.
That'll
What
be
about
fun.
commercial nursery?
Yeah, I'll reiterate my objection that I don't think it's at all compatible with a historic hamlet to hear all those machineries going in reverse and, you know.
It's something
they-
like Grandiflora, you know, that kind of Phantom Gardener, those things are on.
I love those on farms. Let's support our farms with those types of businesses. I don't think
So
it's,
Phantom Gardener where it is on Route 9 is not, you think it's not an appropriate?
it doesn't abut the historic, the unique historic district.
It'd be
Yeah.
great if it did because it's so beautiful.
Maybe not if you live
Yeah,
next to it. Then you have to
It's a
listen to
country
equipment.
business to me, so.
Yeah, it's a country business to me, I don't see-
I'm comfortable with it being there myself.
Compared to other things that could be allowed, I think it would be great.
Like another ragway, we don't need another ragway.
All right, Sarah.
Just think about it.
We'll think about it. We'll stay open.
I don't see why the beeping should be like the main concern, like couldn't. I mean, you know, my neighbor behind me has a vehicle that he uses on a construction site that beeps like that every time he pulls down the driveway. There's nothing that protects me from that. I mean, there's lots of noise things that happen in residential areas that we actually can't do much about. So I just don't see when it's business related, it's a business district, that the beeping should be the main concern there. It's a busy road and we should be promoting businesses that fit in that type of area. Ditto, this was one that I missed last time, but I remember talking about it early in the process, that I think veterinarian's office, the animal hospital that's fully enclosed, I don't see why that's not appropriate in the Hamlet Business District. I think that's the
Without
only
dog
other
runs
one I
outside,
have.
you mean? You mean without dog runs?
Yeah, without dog runs outside, we could say, sure.
Well, I don't think it's not our best option for that area, and I have said for quite some time that I would like that district to be a district that attracts people, that turns the corner and supports the farm that's around the corner.
And I just think we
So I
go,
don't think going to a vet helps, you know, a pick your own or whatever type of business really. I mean, I would like us to think about that.
and I just think that type of business is appropriate for that area of the town, and I'm not convinced by the arguments against not having it there.
Well, I think we have several vets in town that we have easy access to. So I don't even know that, I see no reason that we need any more space for more veterinarians than we already have. We still have plenty of other space for them.
It's currently allowed that use in
That's a special
the
permit.
RD5, the RD3, and the B2.
Yeah.
So like the former Whalesback Veterinary Hospital, is that a veterinary again, I think, isn't it, over in the TND?
I saw a sign up the other day, it seems like it is, yeah.
It is, right? But that's not allowed anymore, right? Is that in the TND?
I don't know, I'd have to look at
Yes.
the
TND is
TND.
a
It is,
different
right?
section.
It's in the TND.
So we've outlawed that in the TND, but you're saying you think it's appropriate. I'm
Well,
just
I mean,
saying
they're
these
almost
things
It's
appropriate
usually on more
anywhere.
land-intensive districts. I'm just telling you that the pattern of the current zoning is to allow that use in more land-intensive districts. The RD5, the RD3, and the B2, which is not very land-intensive, but the B2, which is more of like a light industrial district.
Right, if it's already allowed in the B1 and B2 and this is a business district.
It's not currently allowed in the B1, it's proposed to be allowed in the B1. It's currently not allowed in the B1, currently.
But we are proposing to allow it. So you're saying the pattern, I'm just saying let's be consistent, I guess.
So you think it should not be allowed in the B1?
No, you're saying we're proposing to allow it. So I'm saying let's propose to allow it also in the Hamlet Business District if we're allowing it in the B1. That's what I'm saying, I think.
I'm not sold on that. It's all about compatibility, and I personally am not there yet on vet.
Can I address, one of the things that the county planning is focused on is family daycare.
Yeah, we'll have to
group
look
family.
into that, okay? I'm not
So
sure.
I don't know why they say that we should not allow that.
I don't know, I just got their comments late this afternoon, I haven't really had a chance to look at them, so
Okay.
we'll have to provide you comments on that later.
So might we entertain that resolution so that we could amend the draft and put that out there since it's changed now? So folks will have a full 22 days to take a look at it and make some more comments before the next public hearing, which is May 30th, 7:30.
And so you would be considering as amended with the signage amendments and the food trucks, and I will send you a clean copy of that tomorrow with those changes.
That's
Can I,
fine.
so one other thing
Sure,
though,
sure.
with the food trucks, you're saying delete the references to menu boards, right?
Yeah, just
Okay.
talk
Yes.
about a freestanding sign, because we
Right.
can't really talk
But-
about the content of the sign.
Right.
Did you do that in this draft here?
Yes, I have.
Okay, so there's one more spot, it's letter F, under
Oh, okay,
796, where it's still.
Oh, that should actually, that whole section should be deleted, that's my error, I'm sorry,
Okay.
that whole section.
No, that's
should-
okay, I just wanna make sure. Okay.
F, you mean, is it?
Yes,
Deleted?
yeah.
Okay.
That was actually moved up, but it didn't get crossed out, thank you.
Well, thank you, everyone, and thank you all for your input, those of you who have shared it with us, and we welcome more of it. At this time, I would like to entertain that we revise that draft
I would
and
like to
that
discuss
resolution.
what the county sent to us.
Okay.
It brings up an issue that I'm uncomfortable with, we haven't discussed yet. Notably formula businesses.
Yes, we.
I don't want us to forego, I'm very concerned that we would forego the support, the financial support of the community that could come from some aspect of formula businesses. The major code, the money that can be used to develop here is inclined is likely to come from formula businesses. Now, if you look across the river, the formula businesses are being torn down as we speak. The big box stores and whatever.
Where's that?
Hmm?
Where's that?
Across the river.
Which ones?
Hudson Valley Mall.
The Hudson Valley Mall and whatever, and that's
Part
kind
of the,
of, kind of,
I
I
haven't been
think.
over there lately, but part of the Hudson Valley Mall is
Well,
torn down.
Well,
I know they're digging up.
virtually, they're empty, they may as well be.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean they're torn down, that's
No.
a different statement.
Yeah.
And I know they're digging up part of the, in front of the Hudson Valley Mall to build something new.
They're building some new things, but there are no big box stores opening that I can see. And that's incidental to the town of Red Hook. I don't think that we have a risk of having big box stores here, other than the Hannafords, which we pretty much have to have. We need a food store and a general food store, but the formula businesses assumes that you're going to have golden arches. And I wouldn't propose that we have golden arches. But what it precludes if we eliminate it is financial resources where local people can receive financial aid to initiate a business, to start a business. We have a number of businesses here now that probably wouldn't exist without the cooperation of the owner of the major business. For instance, the Agway, the hardware store. Many of them are actually at the result of a formula business and probably financial backing from the formula business. As we've defined it, I'm not sure the formula business is even necessarily correct. Because the money can come to support someone who's starting a business here. That doesn't necessarily have the same label on it. You know, I think the broad brush of just saying no formula business is counterproductive to the economic growth of the town.
Okay, so again, I'm gonna claim my, newbie status, but, it's my understanding, so Chris, I'm gonna look at you, that we don't get to pick and choose what kind of formula businesses we would want. For instance, as Harry has mentioned, like, he mentioned Golden Arches as something he would not wanna see. But we would not be able to, pass a law that says you can't have these particular kinds of franchises.
Well, I don't know what Harry's proposing, so.
Well, isn't it, I'm
No,
just saying, we can't pass a law that says you can't have a fast food franchise, or you can't
But is
have.
that what you're proposing?
So,
I'm
No.
just trying to understand what the question
No,
is.
what I'm proposing is it seems this broad brush approach precludes us, the people from town, from having the financial aid from what this definition of formula business would preclude. And the definition as we're working with it now. So I would propose that we work on a definition that allows the financial aid of a corporation who is perhaps in some specific business to support business where people can get support. Support in more than one way, in several ways. Financially,
Do you mean franchise, like
like
a
a
franchise?
like a franchise.
Right, so you're saying that we would have to have a definition that said you could have a franchise or a
Yeah.
formula business in these certain types of businesses, but not others.
Yeah,
that what you're
perhaps.
saying? Yeah.
I wouldn't want a big box store here. Not that I think there would ever be one, because of the geography and the nature of the community.
That's
I
already
don't-
not allowed in our code.
Yeah, we don't have that.
But if it's a smaller business, if it's some of the clothing stores that maybe have changed, and some stores have a local name on them, even though they are associated with a major corporation.
Right, that's why
I'm
we-
not really sure
sorry.
that we can do that, but.
That's why we amended the definition, one, the number of locations, and two, for the primary name, so that we address what you're talking about. That's why this definition has changed, so it has the primary name. So if you do have something like a Max Agway, and an Agway is no longer actually a chain anymore, it's a brand of feed that used to be a chain, but it no longer is, then you have a Max, and Mac Gary has the opportunity to sell additional goods in that store, and not just Agway. And so he's not a formula business according to this definition. Williams Lumber is not a formula business according to this current definition. These concessions and compromises were made for that purpose, so that we could have more an ability for businesses to expand without having that sameness that you find across America. We cannot talk about who owns businesses. We cannot regulate that. We cannot say, people would like us to do that. You know, studies show that if it's locally owned, more money circulates in the community and all of that stuff. We cannot regulate ownership. And so it's nice to hear all the discussion, and everybody, believe me, everybody, business owners here, and I've spoken to a lot of business owners, they're very nervous about their business and their prospects for the business. If a Home Depot or a Lowe's were to come in here, just as a descriptive example, then that family, that Hobson family that we just saw, that Eagle Scout, their parents who have a wonderful family business for generations would not be here. But we can't get involved in that. What we can only deal with is community character and what the impact on community character does overall to our economy. Well, we know the answer, and the Dutchess County Chamber folks are here, and I thank you very much for coming. But I only have to look to one municipality south to see the prosperousness of that community, which has essentially all unique businesses. And so their role when we're talking about school taxes, and people would like to scare you into thinking that your taxes will be higher because there aren't, it's not the case. That in community character, the uniqueness is why people go visit, people live, because of that uniqueness, and that is going to continue to lift our prospects going forward. But we can only talk about community character with respect to this law, and we know the impact. If you've gone to many of those communities in New York State where you've seen the Dollar General, and they're all over the place. There are, within 20 minutes, there are 11 of them. We've seen those kind of corporations and those kind of stores that are juxtaposed against a historic little church in a little town, and I've seen many of them in my drive to Cornell, where my daughter goes to school. You can't help but notice the impact that that's had on the community. It's not about the architecture. You know, people would like to have, for us to have the prettiest McDonald's. Well, I think Hyde Park attempted that. It didn't help that situation. Community character is about experience. It's why people live here. Some of the most nondescript architecture exists at Holy Cow. But the experience is something I challenge you to find. A better experience than going to Holy Cow in our township. It is not for the wealthy. It is not protectionism to keep certain businesses out, keep certain types of people out. It's in the same nondescript building as Subway, and I think we know which one has the lines during most of the season. So character is like the character that exists with an individual. It's about what goes on inside as much as it is about what goes on outside. So that's my spiel.
I
Could
do
we-
think you should.
Could I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Before we consider the law or vote on it like that, I think the main question that has to be presented to the board, based upon, for example, the observation by Dutchess County Planning, is there a way that we can use strict agricultural review, building size maximum, strict sign ordinances to actually create, you know, the limitations that we want to maintain the character of the community without, across the board, eliminating all formula businesses?
We have
They talk
addressed,
about that.
we have addressed that
Well,
question.
we tried
spent
to
2
talk-
years.
Bill, to
Maybe
be
we have an answer, I don't know.
Bill, if you remember, at
All I want to know is that answer to that question.
when we first
Or
started
plan,
talking about
right?
this at the intermunicipal task force,
What?
we rejected that avenue. So we
Right.
never went down that road to explore whether we could do that.
Or you can.
Well, I don't know.
But we
We have.
can't, the
And
planner's
that's-
position has
we
always been that
shouldn't
we
be
could try
embarrassed.
that, and it's like there's a fork in the road, we could have gone down there, the intermunicipal task force decided to go down a different road.
And I would just add that,
So, we're
we are-
gonna take a little fork in the road.
no, I think we get a lot of complaints, and we heard some comments tonight about how, overzealous, or, you know, that the planning board might be, or how long it takes to get to the planning process. So to try to put all of these added steps and regulations before the planning board is certainly not gonna help that situation, and it's not gonna help the workload of the planning board, nor is it gonna make applicants in front of the planning board any happier about having to go through that process.
But would you rather be able to go before the planning board at all, or be restricted completely,
Well, that's a planning board problem, not the.
Yeah, that's a planning board problem, and it's a problem with how we communicate
No,
to
I'm just saying
people
that I think that this is perhaps
how
a
to
better
come
way
before
to
the
address
planning
it.
board.
If we're specifically talking about community character, and as that you mentioned, the intermunicipal task force was at the fork in the road, decided to go this way, that they felt this was the way, and they recommended that this was the option to promote and protect the community character of the town, then maybe we should go this way instead of trying to put more regulations in place, more steps, more confusion, more ping-ponging of applicants between offices and boards. You know, I mean, why put people through that if that's not, if we just are saying if this is the recommendation, that this is the way we want to proceed to get there, then why wouldn't we just do that?
When we first started to draft the formula business report, another thing that we had talked about was the definition of which business types would fall under the formula business ban, and we actually didn't have, I think, personal service businesses in at first, which is one of the types that the county is talking about, I think. Right, Michelle? I don't know it as well.
Well, they say it's
The
some formula
Banks
businesses.
and gas
Yeah,
stations, for
can't.
example.
As I say, I've only received the county's
Yeah.
comments very late this afternoon.
Yeah,
so
none
I
of us
haven't
had a
really
chance to review
Look
that.
at it.
so
Why
we're
don't
just
we,
looking at
why
it
don't we
now,
take
but-
that into consideration, shall we? It's getting late. What I'd like to do is
Can
have
can I just ask one question
Yes,
about the
ma'am.
food trucks that I forgot to ask before?
Yes, ma'am.
How did we arrive at the season of 9 months? Because that seems like a really long season to me. And 9 months, and this is from like March to November.
I think it was just trying to capture, you know, the ideal best weather, you know, if you had you know,
It was the-
I mean, we don't seem to have good weather
Across the
anymore
river.
at all.
Well, I was gonna say, given this year,
I
you
know.
know, March and
But I
April
mean, they
probably
may
wouldn't
not,
be.
they may not open it during, if March is bad weather, but if it was great season, you know, I think the idea was to allow them to open in case it was great weather, so.
So
Yeah,
just
well,
going-
Sam will remember, it was based upon the Saugerties formula.
It was based on Saugerties, and the big idea was make sure that it's not year-round. That was the primary concept.
Right,
That's
which
why it's
I
not.
agree with,
You
but.
know, pick your number.
Well, going back to my comment about, you know, the fact that we have, you know, non-mobile food businesses in town and trying to maintain as, you know, much fair competition as we can, I don't know, 9 months seems like a long season, so I wonder if anybody's open to the idea of reducing the
Is
length
the
of
town
that
really
season.
able to regulate competition though? I don't think.
No, but we're able to regulate the amount of time you get to have your food truck open.
I'm just saying, we're not allowed to regulate competition. I'm just like, cause that's
But
come
we
up
are
several
regulating,
times.
but we can regulate, I just think 9 months is a long time to have a food truck parked on a property. perhaps, right on 5 feet off the side of the road or next to somebody's residential property or whatever it might be. So just seems, I don't know if anybody else is open to the idea of reducing the period of time.
Give us a number.
I don't
Six?
I don't have a
Seven?
problem with it one way.
I don't see why we would restrict it further, and it should be up to the person buying the permit, whether they wanna open at a time when people are less likely to come out to their truck, I mean.
So
yeah,
9 months
I
means
don't
up
see
to
why.
9.
Yeah, it's up to a maximum.
Yeah, maximum.
Christine,
There are food trucks at ski areas.
I would be happy to consider some change in the duration, but not tonight. I'd like to give that some thought.
Okay, I'm just
Okay.
bringing it up, right.
Okay. Again, could we entertain, because it's getting 10 o'clock, could we entertain this resolution to amend the current draft and make it available for the public hearing on May 30th? It would be resolution number
27.
27. Would that be okay, folks?
Since you had your spiel, I just gotta say,
Yes, please.
my family's in the Stewart's family.
Yeah.
My family's a Stewart's family. So you said there's no better experience to be had than Holy Cow. I would just say, characters in the eye of the beholder.
Right.
When I go up to my dad's house, I can count 8 Stewarts between here and there. And we love Stewart's, we think it's affordable, it's a place you can go with your kid's uniform on and you get free ice cream. When I'm there, I like to sit because I see lots of people, lots of different people that I don't always see at other establishments. And I think it's a great place in our community. I've always joked that we should have a Stewart's exception in the law if we passed a formula business law, because I just think it's a really community-minded type of business that is, when you talk about what's the definition of upstate, I think Stewart's ought to be in it, So I would just say characters in the eye of the beholder, I think we should really be thinking about that, and I think it sounds like we need more discussion about how the intermunicipal task force first came up with some of the definitions here. Because like I was saying before, certain things like personal service-based businesses, banks, gas stations were not included originally.
Right.
And I see that here in the county's comments. I'm also confused, I don't know, Michelle or Robert, if you can speak to this, but there's no response checked here in the county comments?
Yeah, no, it's just local concern
because
with
they have a
comments,
letter.
that's all, so there's,
It's just not checked, that's all, the box isn't checked there, so I wasn't sure, because there was no box checked.
well, I think they say it in their letter, they say it in the letter itself.
Yeah, I was trying to find that.
So it's not requiring a
Well,
supermajority.
I'm concerned that we're foregoing some substantial financial resources that can come here and some big time names that would tend to draw people.
Okay. All right. So, may we please, it's getting late, it's 10 o'clock, we still have some additional business to do. May we please entertain resolution number 27 so that we can make the amendments based upon the conversations and input from many, and make the amended version, the version available for the May 30th public hearing. And
We already have a motion.
the motion,
You already have a motion.
I have the motion, I made the motion, okay, a second.
No, you had it, it had a motion and a second, so you can just call it.
Oh, sorry.
Sue McCann doesn't think we
Okay, let's do it again. A
Okay,
motion.
so moved.
Okay.
Second.
Second, okay. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all very much.
Now, I guess I have a question.
Yes.
Talks about a revised EAF, have we done that? In this resolution?
Michelle, revised
No, it says-
EAF.
It says that they've reviewed the EAF, let me see your
Oh,
copy.
okay.
Review,
No,
it
it
says they
says
reviewed the
regarding
EAF.
the revised proposed local law.
Right, revised proposed local law, which is what Michelle sent today, which is in your packet, correct? Right? You have it in your packet.
What, the EAF?
No, the EAF is not different, where is it? It says where is the word, it's reviewed the EAF, not revised EAF.
Regarding the revised
Correct.
proposed.
So there.
There's no revision to the EAF.
She's saying there's no revision necessary, so we reviewed it and determined that it's still reflective of the impacts in the local laws, because the local law changes the impact process. Correct. And so I'm just going to
Folks, thank you very much for coming. We're gonna continue with our meeting if that's okay. If you'd be kind enough to just take the conversation outside. Hopefully it's warm enough for that. We thank you very much for coming and for your input. We'll see you again May 30th, 7:35. Okay. All right, we have item number 5. We don't.
It's a revised local law, right?
Correct.
Right.
But there were no changes to the AF.
Right, but we do need another public hearing notice.
Correct.
It needs to be distributed to 200 people.
Correct.
And the
Yes.
planning board and all that
Correct.
Yeah.
again.
That's
Yeah,
correct.
we're renoticing.
And then
That's
if we
the
revise
resolution.
it again,
Yes.
after the next meeting, we do the same process.
Yes.
At the town board, we have to renotice every time?
Right.
Even if you extend to a particular date?
Okay. We were going to discuss approving the contract to purchase the streetlights from Central Hudson. We did not receive the final dollar amount. Do we have a resolution? Maybe we could do an up to?
I don't think there was one in the packet.
Okay.
Was there a deadline? Do we have to do it soon?
Well, you know, the price keeps going up is the problem. So,
Right, but we already have a resolution. The issue is amending it based on the new
the new dollar
information that we
amount.
got,
Okay,
right?
so we'll get that and
So-
hopefully that'll be on the agenda for the next night's meeting. I only have one thing for reorg that we need to do. It just occurred to me, we had the LWRP. We said in our grant, and I'd like to do that. We did not appoint you, Bill, and Brent Kowalczyk, as we said we were going to do to that committee, and I'm wondering if we can just go ahead.
Harry instead of me.
Harry instead of you, but we put you, you've got a bigger billable rate than Harry does, no offense, Harry.
I don't know what you're talking about.
The LWRP committee,
Oh,
would it be okay if we appoint Brent and Bill to that committee? And we'll see what we can get out of them for that as well.
in a way, I'd like to do it, I did it before.
Well, you can still be on it.
Yeah, you
You
still
can
on
still
it.
be on it.
You
Yep.
can show up and I won't.
You can still be on it. Would that be all right? We can
We'll have to vote.
we can appoint Brent and Bill O'Neill to the LWRP as per the grant application that was done quite some time ago, a couple of years ago, I think, was the grant application. Would that be all right? Okay, I make that motion.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye,
Aye.
whatever it was.
Okay, thank you, Harriet. All right, correspondence, well, you have all the correspondence related to the subject matters tonight. Is there any further public comment? If not, I'm gonna entertain, yes, Norman, please? And again, just remind you, 3 minutes, it's not because we're not endeared by you, Norman, it's just so that we.
I know you're not endeared by me, but it's all right. No, I have two things. You know, when you're talking about formula business, I think you have to be careful. You know, Migliorelli has 30 farm stands. Are you going to ban people like Migliorelli, who are little guys trying to make good, from Red Hook? You know, you have to think about how you're doing that. The other thing, I would like to see the Red Hook lead by example. And when I look at the town parking lot, I keep wondering, that's obviously not a product of the Red Hook Planning Board. And I'm anxious to see the Red Hook Planning Board look at it, because I thought we valued their input. Because you've got a straight, open, impervious area that's landscaped by cement curbing. That's not a product of what the town planning board does. And so I would like to at least request that the town board turn it over to the planning board and allow them to look at it and make comments, because you could actually learn from one of your own committees. It would be a good thing for you.
Thank you. That parking lot plan, I think, was developed a few years ago, but thank you, Norman.
A few years ago.
Yeah, but it didn't
Yeah.
go to, it didn't.
The planning board never looked at it. You can
No,
tell
I
by the way it
understand
looks.
that. No, I was just talking about timing. That's
Talking about what was built this year.
No.
No, it was built a couple of years ago.
Yeah, it was built a while ago, but.
Well, it's not done yet, is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
It's not done yet.
yeah,
Oh, okay.
that's right.
You know, plant a tree. You don't have to, cement curbing is not
I know.
landscaping.
I know.
And-
Okay.
And it wouldn't be allowed anywhere else in Red Hook.
Right,
Anywhere else.
right.
Except here, where you don't have to go for approval. And it's not about the approval, and my 3 minutes aren't up. It's not about the approval, it's about the input by people who do this for a living and actually have valuable input. You know, I mean, how do I say it? If the planning board worked for me, I would be offended that when you're doing your own project, you didn't even have them have input. I mean, it doesn't speak very well to how you think of them.
Okay, and I again just say that was prior to at least many of our times here when that plan was developed. for
Oh,
the
I
park.
forgot you're all brand new here. Right.
So, okay, thank you all again for coming. At this time, I would like to make a motion that we go into attorney-client. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thanks for coming, everyone.